All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. Welcome everyone to the Jump Conference. We're really happy to have everyone here today. I know for some people it's the middle of the night. We had some technical difficulties, but I think we're almost ready to roll now. We're really fortunate that we have people coming here today from all over the world, from every continent on the planet, from every possible time zone. So we're getting excited to roll here. Can everyone just send me a quick message on the chat and let me know if they can hear me okay before I get started? It seems like people are able to hear. Good. Is anyone not able to hear me? All right. Okay, so it seems like we're rolling. All right. All right, so I'm going to give you a quick intro to myself. My name is ABBAS ALIDINA. I'm from Toronto, Canada, and been in the tech industry for the past 15 years. About 6 months ago, I started a company called We the Origin, and the goal of the company was to basically make coffee more sustainable, transparent, and to basically leverage my background in the tech industry to improve coffee. All right, sorry, I think that's having a bit of an audio issue. 1 second. All right, I think we're back now. I think we're good now. All right. So I've been in the tech industry for about 15 years, and my coffee journey started about 6, 7 years ago. I was living in Dubai at the time, and someone gave me an Ethiopian Harar. And when I tasted this coffee, it basically blew my mind. I couldn't believe that a coffee could have such incredible notes of blueberries and citrus. And it really just kind of changed my world. And ever since then, I've been chasing the dragon. And I think a lot of people that are here today, you guys probably have a similar story. And that's what really brings us all together and binds us is this magical thing called coffee. And what I love about the coffee industry is that we're super resilient. So in coffee, we've faced so many, problems over the years. We've had Roya, we've had diseases, low prices, consistently low prices for our coffee over the last 40 years. There's been political tensions, lack of access to finance, global warming, and the list just goes on and on. Yet everyone who works in coffee is extremely resilient. And that's what I love about working with people in coffee is just that drive and that resiliency to push on. Now, over the past few months, we've had something come up that's been pretty unique, which is COVID. And COVID has really just completely destroyed everything that we knew in the coffee industry. From logistics to consumer behavior, everything has changed. So now we have coffee that's stuck either, in ports waiting to be exported. We have coffee that's stored in warehouses that's not being purchased. We have cafes that have some coffee that, the way that it's being consumed has changed. Instead of people showing up and coming to the coffee shop and drinking coffee, now people are ordering to their homes. They're taking coffee to go. So everything has really changed. There has never been a moment in time when something like COVID has happened before, where the entire supply chain has been stressed at the same time. So we can't really change what's happened, but what we can change is how we respond and how we respond individually, collectively, and as an industry as a whole. So I'm really thrilled today to have everyone here coming together from all parts of the world. We have Damian Reed joining us from Panama, Karthik, who's a good friend of mine from Dubai, He's participated in numerous coffee competitions and has won World Coffee Champion as well as UAE Coffee Champion, and is now the head of coffee at 3 coffee roasters. We have Rhinehart, the Emeritus Executive Director of the SCA and one of the most experienced coffee professionals I've ever met. We have KARL from Cedro, Alto in Colombia. He's put together a collaborative, and I can't wait to hear what he says. We have Queen P, PERPETUE MUSINGA from Rwanda, representing sustainable growers. She's worked with over 30,000 farmers in Rwanda, so she's made a huge impact on coffee, and I know what she's done during COVID, and I can't wait for her to share her story as well. We have EZEQUIEL Batista. I call him Kilito. He was one of the first people I met in my coffee journey, and he's helped a lot of producers in Panama get their coffee to new markets. We have EDGARD from Capricornio Coffees in Brazil. From D Origin Coffee Roasters, we have Michael, and we have Cole from Rosso Coffee Roasters, who's also a 2-time Canadian barista champion. We have Rodrigo from Devoción Colombia, and Martin Pollock from Torch Coffee in China. So we basically have someone from every continent on the planet, from every corner of the coffee industry. We're really fortunate that everyone's come here together today. From east to west, north to south, we're all here on a shared mission to figure out how we can rebound from COVID-19 and come back stronger in the coffee industry. Now, from my experience in the tech world, there are a lot of efficiencies that we can gain. Now with COVID, we're not able to travel. So in the past, we may have traveled to Origin, we may have developed business relationships in person, we may have met in a coffee shop, but that is no longer possible. So what's happened is a lot of this has moved online. And as a technologist myself, I see a lot of opportunity for us to really leverage technology to improve the coffee industry. So we really have an opportunity right now to redesign coffee and really rethink everything about coffee from the ground up. Now, I'm going to take a step back right now and really let all these people that I just mentioned share their thoughts, because we have some incredible thought leaders and innovators available to us today. So I'm going to step back and I'm going to pass it on to Karthik to get started. Karthik, can you please take over?
Abbas, really appreciate it. Can you guys hear me now? Yeah, perfect. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I've been looking forward for this opportunity for so long. It's great to meet you all at this tough situation. Things are getting better over here in this part of the world, so that's a great thing. We realized a lot of new opportunities during this situation, and we came back with some new ideas for our market which potentially work. So we thought we should share this with along the rest of the world, coffee industry professionals, or also help them to see how they can get back on their feet while supporting the farmers. We have a small presentation over here, so I'm going to share my screen if you just give me a second. So what we noticed in the many specialty coffee growers recently has been hard hit by the coronavirus crisis, as consumers are barred from the coffee shops that serve niche brews and opt for shop-bought offerings. The global consumers especially are still drinking coffee, but few are visiting cafes. Instead, they are buying medium quality supermarket coffees being to drink at home, foregoing high-end coffee shop offerings and spelling disaster for specialized suppliers. So we decided we can see once the COVID situation is finished and the roasters, coffee shops are allowed to open back in business, how we can get back on our feet while supporting the small scale farmers. Because during the situation, the most affected part of the coffee chain was the small scale farmers, especially. So we will quickly look what are the recent impacts or scenarios that's been faced at the origin during this last 3 months of the COVID situation. We saw that there was a lot of cancellation of micro lot orders, especially some of the prominent European specialty coffee traders. What they said to us was due to the coronavirus situation, they had driven down specialty coffee demand in United States and Europe by 40%. And due to this situation, especially the small batches and nano lot consignments made by air order by the specialty coffee roasters around the world has been cancelled. These specialty and experimental lots where the small scale farmers invested a lot of cash flow for last year's market demands to satisfy the market demands. Because if you notice recently, there was a very high demand for the specialty coffees, which are processed in experimental processing ways. So many small scale producers started investing on this experimental processing methods by a lot of machines.
What happened?
On distillery tanks and everything.
Hello.
And once these coffees are ready and stored in the warehouse, ready for shipped, people loved it and they ordered for this coffee.
Hello. Can you hear me?
And they cannot ship the coffee anymore. And this severely affected the farmers, especially. So we all know, like ABBAS said, coffee was already struggling in terms of like production cost being too high for producers to compete with the mechanized mega growers. And climate change is pushing up temperature and making rainfall patterns more erratic, reducing the productivity of the origin and forcing many small scale farmers to go out of the business. And the New York Stock Exchange, the low global coffee prices had been added to the 6-star O's, where the Arabica futures touched 13-year low last year. But luckily, prices had begun to rebound, which is a good thing. The farmers were just started to smile with coffee prices going up. And then here comes the corona. The problem starts again. So what happened is, because of this situation where the roasters cannot sell a lot of their stocks, which they currently have it in their warehouses, and they are not sure that will there be an opportunity for high-end coffees in the market on next few months, even after the corona situation finishes. So they are a little bit scared and they took a step back, started canceling most of their orders with the farmers. This is what we realized with our producers as well. Like when we went to them and asked how's the situation over here, the main complaint they say is like most of the regular customers has canceled their orders or reduced the quantity they used to regularly order. And there was a very high manpower shortage also has been faced by many origins, which got the harvesting periods over the last 3 months of February, March, and April. What we noticed is the small scale land owners or the farmers couldn't find pickers because of the situation, especially on Indonesia and Vietnam. They couldn't find pickers because there was a lockdown. There was pickers were not allowed to go out. Most of the cherries were left to get spoiled on the trees as well, which is a very sad thing. At the end, we have a situation where the warehousing spaces started to get full in the origins itself. We all know that many origins, most of the origins at the moment is having 2 harvesting periods, like Colombia, where there is 3 or 4 harvesting periods, depends upon which part of the Colombia they are in. And Brazil, no, Indonesia has 2 harvesting periods. So some of the cold coffees are still sitting in their warehouses from the previous harvest. And when the new harvest comes, there is no more space because of this corona situation. A lot of coffees has got stuck in the warehouses in the farms. So the farmers don't have storage space for the new harvested coffees, which was another situation. So these are the major impacts what we noticed during this last 3 months with the origins, figuring regions especially. But at the same time, while we were all thinking that consumers are not drinking enough coffee, it's not the right thing to say, how we can say that there was not enough coffee sales with the specialty coffee roasters. If you look at the consumers' purchase trends for last 4 months with different origins, we can say in Italy, France, UK, New Zealand, and US, we made a chart over here, and we realized the edible items, if we see first, the beverage has increased in sales by 17.5% to 39.6%, which was a great rise. Is compared to the last year's data. This year, there was a huge rise on the coffee and packed beverages and canned beverages in the supermarkets. And as well, in the top growing categories by the country in the last 3 months, and if you look, the bottled beverages, especially like teas and coffees, has got a rise of 273.8%, which was massive, like humongous. So the demand for coffee didn't drop down. Only the number of people going to coffee shops or number of people who used to purchase specialty coffees is what dropped. So we have to find a way that how we can make the specialty coffee offerings more accessible for these consumers to approach or penetrate this market. So people can still afford to pay the farmers and buy high-end specialty coffees. At the same time, they can run the business ethically. Well, we looked at why people choose the commodity coffee, especially like, let's say, instant coffee or drip coffee bags, which was commonly available in the supermarkets. And we noticed that most coffee drinkers at this situation, they're looking for a brewing options which doesn't need any special equipments, like something more simple, something they can just like a tea bag option, something they can put in a cup and pour hot water and brew it with 3 or 4 minutes. That's it. No V60 or French press, no special equipments needed. So we have to see how we can conduct that. And then we have certain customers tell to us that it doesn't need lot of skill or understanding to brew a cup of coffee for them every day morning or during their busy work hours in the home itself. So they decided to go with commercial drip bags or instant coffees in the supermarket, which was much easier for them to get it brewed every day morning. At the affordable price, we cannot say it's necessarily affordable, but this is one of the options which most consumers put in the table. So I decided to add that as well. And social media trends. Recently, we all saw that there was Dalgona coffee, which was going like viral all over social media, which eventually increased or supported the sales of instant coffees around the world. It's not a big increase, but necessarily that as well potentially had an impact. So we saw once this COVID situation finishes, maybe in like a couple of months or like 6 months of period of time, once this all situation finishes, we are all allowed to go out, the infected numbers reduced. What would be the behavioral trends that would reshape or that the consumers will be having in terms of like food and beverage options, what they will be willing to have, what kind of mindset the consumers will be having? So we saw that there was like 3 major behavioral impacts would be known to be followed. Even though the lockdowns in most countries will open after like a couple of months, many big companies requested their employees to stay in the home and work from home till 2021. Especially there are some few options I mentioned over here, like the Google asked their employees to stay and work in homes till 2021, and Twitter's also allowed the work from home even after the COVID. And many CFOs and CEOs of big companies has requested, especially the production plant companies like biscuits, chocolates, or Nestle, these companies have requested their most of the staff to work from home. And second, don't be dense. Even after the lockdown finishes, people will still under the confusion stage. They will not be more social like it used to be before. They'll be still scared to have a cup of coffee sitting next to a stranger in a specialty coffee shop or in a restaurant sitting next to a random person and having their food. So many people will be willing to make it as a takeaway, the deliveries, or they'll be trying to brew from home, and they will not be going into places which are more crowded, like a marketplace or a coffee shop or a restaurant even. And increasing concerns over food safety. So during this last 4 months period of time, many consumers has become aware of the product safety and situations. So they may be looking more into like how this product came and also transparency of the supply chain of the product, which is a positive thing. People will be more willing to hear about their coffee, where it came from and what really goes behind for the cup of coffee in terms of like transparency and as well as like safety features. So based on this, we set up a model which can help the coffee roasters to be prepared for the post-COVID situation that can potentially help them to get back on their feet quickly, while also supporting the small-scale farmers without canceling their orders, where they can run their business profitably while uplifting all the coffee chain. So the three most important things on building the new strategy for the post-COVID situation, what we realized was, number one, you have to come up with products or options that are easy to prep and brew, and products that has a clear labeling system of product safety and transparency, and platforms that can help the roasters or restaurants or coffee shops to sell their products through online. If you look, most of the roasters, consumers would be coffee shops and restaurants, okay? And this is where the end consumers will have accessibility to the specialty coffee. And most restaurants, they sell only the cup of coffee. They don't sell the bag of beans or brewing accessories that are necessarily can help the customers to brew their own cup of coffee in house. So I think the roasters should come up with tie-ups or franchising system to sell their brewing units as well in the restaurants along with the consumers, so that people can easily avail the options to brew it in their houses. So when I say easy to prep brew, what does it mean? We had recently a situation in Dubai, in Middle East especially, where the specialty coffee market started to face a little bit of a dark side. During the situation, people started to move back to the commodity coffee instead of a specialty coffee. Because of unemployment, many people lose the job and many people don't want to spend money. So, and the most important thing is like, they don't want to spend time on brewing a cup of coffee, or like they want to put or learn a new skill that can like coffee brewing in their home. So we came up with solutions or concentrates in our brand, which can be accessible for people. They can order online and they can make like numerous number of coffees. We thought instant coffee will be a great idea using specialty beans like or nano lots, but potentially that takes like a lot of investment. So something that can be easily done is one of the companies called Elemental Beverages, which is in this presentation, has done in US, in Boston. They hot brewed the coffee and turned into a cold beverage and scanned it and then sold it online. So it has more flavors. They can make it as a concentrate and then sell it. So it was much easier for people to access, and they can store it in the fridge. They can make numerous number of cups easily. Number two is product safety and transparency. Like I said, consumers are now highly aware of the situation and especially about their hygiene and food safety. So food and beverage manufacturers, especially the coffee industry people around the globe, should come up with technological advancements like blockchain, enhanced visibility and transparency of their products into their supply chain, like how the We the Origin does, or iFinca, or many companies around the world, Farmers Connect does. These kind of platforms would be more helpful for the roasters of these current situation to create transparency for the end consumers. And online buying power, we all know. So one of the countries that's already came back from the COVID situation and on the pace of getting back into the normal situation is China. And what we saw in the market trend of China is after the pandemic situation, the online buying platforms started to perform more better, even with aged people who are not tech savvy, like people who are like about 50, 60 years old, started using online purchasing platforms or online shopping platforms to purchase their regular products or everyday products, groceries, milk items, coffees, teas, everything. The reason is during the lockdown, people have been used to this kind of technological advancements, online platforms. So once the lockdown has been lifted, they still want to enjoy those facilities. They've created their own comfort zone. So they want to stay in their comfort zone. So they decided to go with online platforms, to stay with the online platforms. That's what we noticed. So looking at this situation, we can say like creating a products that are more accessible for the market, not necessarily niche, and as well as products that doesn't needs extraordinary skills to brew a cup of coffee, and the products that has a longer shelf life, and products that can be easily purchased by the people through online platforms tend to do very good. I think the roasters should be focusing more on this kind of strategies to get back on their feet, especially during this COVID situation, and particularly after the COVID situation, to penetrate the market and make sure that specialty coffee keep growing while also supporting the farmers. Cool. Pretty much those are the things I want to say about before we start. And cool. If you guys have any questions, you're welcome to ask me. That's for my side. Abbas?
Thank you, Karthik. That was a really good overview. I'm actually really, happy to hear that, coffee volume hasn't gone down drastically. It's more of a change of behavior. We still need our coffee fix. Consumers still need their coffee fix. So I like some of the strategies you touched on in terms of how to make coffee more accessible. Other strategies such as cold brew, pairing brewing devices or brewing apparatus, just making it more accessible. Because, when it comes to specialty coffee, I feel for most people, it starts, outside the home, right? In my case, it started with you making me a Panamanian geisha in a coffee shop in Dubai. And it's all your fault that I've gotten hooked on coffee because of what you gave me that one day. But now I bring it into my home, and over time you start also consuming it in the home. So knowing that the majority of people still may consume specialty coffee historically in the cafe, how can we provide that same experience and that same level of coffee quality in the home? I think those were some great ideas. So what we'll do is we'll capture questions, and I'm just checking if there's any that have come in right now. Yeah, okay. So there's one from Eric. Maybe we can address it right now. How does I don't know if you can see it. How does easy to prep brew affect coffee quality, if at all? Do you see serious coffee enthusiasts also adapting to this trend?
Yeah, and he said no need to answer now, but I'm happy to answer now actually. Cool. So easy to prep brew. We thought that people who've been hooked to specialty coffee flavor characters will be close-minded when it comes to like instant coffees or like coffee concentrates. So we were a little bit worried when we started this project 2 months ago. When we tried to make like easy to brew concentrates, we just used the cold brew system basically, but with a different technology using centrifugal infusion and everything, which can extract more flavors, more like what you call espresso strength with 8 or 10 TDS at that level. We made some natural Ethiopian and Panamanian geisha natural process as well, and people loved it. Actually, it was the hot sale now. It was made in like 500 ml bottles, which can produce like 10 cups of coffee for the consumers. So people like to buy those kind of products at the moment, and that we are selling it a lot of that product. In terms of coffee quality, it was a little bit tricky how you brew the coffee. You know that very well that when it comes to specialty coffee and when it was cold brewed, it can get oxidized very quickly. So we have to pay a little bit more attention on the packaging systems and as well as the brewing environment to make sure that it doesn't get oxidized. We employ some enzymes actually while brewing to come over those risks. If you want later, I can share those enzymes as well.
All right. Thanks, Karthik. Okay, so one quick follow-up question from Eric. So on the density issue, any advice for folks who want to open a shop?
I would recommend opening a shop now. It's not a bad idea, but a shop which is mainly focused on delivery service options for the consumers would be a great idea, or a subscription service options where a consumer can pay for a month worth of coffee, like cup of coffee, not a bag of coffee. Let's say where you can spend like a few $100 for like 30 cups of coffee for a whole month, which gets delivered every day to their office or home regularly at a certain particular time would be a great option for a coffee shop.
Thanks, Karthik. We had one question come in on social media. We're live streaming this on a few different platforms.
Yeah.
So the question that came in was, you mentioned product safety. Can you expand on what you mean and how can we offer more safe products?
When I say product safety, like people are looking for like safe products. So we all know that coffee is safe, like there's nothing wrong with coffee. We have to put it in a label with like nutritional facts. That can be a great thing. And as well as come up with coffee products with some other health beneficial products like coffee with whey protein concentrate and coffee with THC oil or CBD oil. Coffee with CBD oil was a big boom at the moment. Many people are trying to buy CBD oil with coffee. So those kind of products, when I say product safety.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Karthik. That was incredible.
Questions coming in.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we're going to gather these questions because we have a pretty packed schedule, and we'll come back to some of the questions. So keep them coming in either in Zoom, in the QA box, or even on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you're watching this. Just keep sharing the questions, and we'll try to address as many as we can as we go through. But just in order to respect the time of everyone else, we'll gather some and keep them at the end. So thank you, Karthik, very much. I was really excited to just hear your insights, and this was super valuable. So thank you very much, Karthik.
Welcome. Cheers.
And with that, I think we got Damien. Hello, Damien. I think you're muted.
Hi.
Hello. Yes.
I'm not now.
Welcome back.
Thanks. We had some technical difficulty there, which is kind of difficult. So we overcame. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, this is the first time we're doing this, and we're streaming it to a lot of places. So there were a lot of tech issues, but we got a tech team in the back, Tobias and Misha helping. So thank you guys for getting it. And Damien, I'll let you take over.
Okay. Well, I kind of wanted to do an introduction here, so I'm gonna do an introduction.
Let's go back in time. Yeah.
The fact is, well, a little bit is that I'm going to jump now, and basically what I want to do is at this time is introduce everybody to our panelists and to all our participants. You've already met yourself, ABBAS, and you've met Karthik, and that's really great. And so
yeah, I did a quick intro. I did a quick intro before you joined.
Oh, did you? Who did you introduce there? So
everyone.
Well, that's pretty good then.
Yeah.
I guess my part's pretty well done.
Yeah. So I think we can go ahead with like Rick's session.
That would be excellent. Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
this is going to be
what
exciting.
can I do? Okay. So go ahead and introduce Rick. That'd be great.
Yeah, okay. So we're really excited today that we have Rick Rhinehart. For over 25 years, Rick has held numerous executive positions across the tea and coffee industry. I don't think he needs an introduction, but just in case you've been living under a rock for those 25 years, Rick is an experienced professional with a demonstrated history of working in the hospitality industry and has results to show for it. Most recently, he was the executive director of the Specialty Coffee Association for just over a decade. Prior to the SCA, Rick was COO of Groundwork Coffee Company, a specialty coffee roaster and tea purveyor in Los Angeles, California. Before that, he was the president of R2 Consultants. He also was a coffee and tea specialist at Cafe Olé. He's also worked at Four Seasons Hotel and Resorts in the food and beverage department. And if you have another 10 minutes, I could go through a list of more credentials, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to skip to the session that we're really excited for today. It's the State of Coffee 2020, this moment in time. Rick is going to talk about what's happened in our coffee industry and how did we get to where we are today. So with that, I'd like to invite Rick to take the stage and share your insights with us.
All right.
All right. How's the audio?
Beautiful.
All right. Well, thanks for the kind introduction. And I want to really start by saying thank you to ABBAS for the introduction, but also thank you to Damian for reaching out to me and asking me to be here today. And it's probably worth exploring that just a bit. I met Damian almost 10 years ago, I guess must be 8 or 9 years ago now, in Panama at the Best of Panama competition, and started talking to him a bit about his venture producing coffee, and was really quite surprised to learn that he was producing coffee, but not in Boquete, not in Chiriquí province, but in an utterly different geography in Panama, one that is not a traditional coffee producer. And he just impressed me as one of those guys who is willing to take risks, to think outside the box, not to be too cliched, just to do something really different. And so when he asked me if I would be willing to participate in this conference, I love people who have that sort of fearlessness and willingness to try something totally outside their comfort zone. So that's how I got here. I said, yeah, sure, I'd be happy to do that. So I'm thrilled to be here. And thank you, Damian, very much for inviting me along. My job here today really is just to sort of contextualize where we find ourselves today within the sort of larger realm of where coffee's been over the last few decades, sort of what we might think of as the modern era. So I'm going to try and do that. But, I really couldn't even begin without acknowledging right out the gate where we find ourselves today. And I think Karthik did a fabulous job of sort of identifying the current reality and some of the tactics we might use to escape it. I want to step back and talk a little bit about that reality from my own perspective as a coffee person in the US, maybe a little broader global perspective, and then with a bit of a historical perspective of what we have seen in the past. So I'm going to put up a presentation here. There's my screen sharing bit, right? Let's see. And I'm one of those not technologically adept people that Karthik was referring to. And hopefully this is going to get all of you. All right, I'll break down the fourth wall here and ask, is the presentation available on the screen now? Well, I'm going to assume so.
Yeah, we can see the presentation.
Yep. It looks great.
Thank you. Great, thanks. So this is me. This is what I want to talk about. So, this is that moment we keep talking about, we find ourselves in crisis, and it's not hard to define this as a crisis. I don't think anybody really anywhere has been able to sort of escape at least some interaction with the current reality and the impacts of what this coronavirus, this novel coronavirus, and the health issues it causes and the unknowns about it have caused. So we're in this place, and we have to ask ourselves, what do you do in a crisis? And the answer to that, it varies a bit. The people who are really thoughtful about this kind of stuff have put lots of energy into, how do you manage a crisis? How do you define it? What do you do? Who are the shareholders and the stakeholders and the thought leaders who have to come together to really come to grips with what happens in the crisis? And we certainly have to be appreciative of those folks who have that kind of expertise, both from the medical and public health side of the picture to the policy side of the picture to the economic side of the picture. And it's fantastic that there are lots and lots of minds working on this at the moment. But the translation of that expertise into impact in our own lives on a very fundamental basis can be extraordinarily challenging. Probably the most recent sort of crisis of anywhere near this magnitude that will come to mind for anyone is the global financial crisis, 2008-2009. And for those of you who lived through that in the coffee business, it had an enormous impact, and it was terrifying. And everybody who had these kinds of expertises in economics or in business or in policy tried to come together to face this down. Our own reaction from where I stood in coffee at that moment in time was to think about how to develop answers, how to answer the questions, how to face the unknowns in that moment in time. And we made a decision not unlike the one that Damian and Abbas made, which was, hey, let's find the other people who are in this crisis with us, and let's talk about it. So we did this. This is a very old picture, and that's why the resolution is so bad. But we gathered together at the SCA at the time about 400 of the sort of thought leaders that we could identify who had a huge stake in the coffee business, and particularly in the specialty coffee business in North America and then ultimately throughout the world. And our mission there was to share what we knew, what we didn't know, what our profound questions were, what our thoughts were about how we might move forward, what our strategies might be, and in some respects, what our tactics might be. And we were there anchored around a group of presenters who presented some thought-provoking questions and some potential solutions and some market assessments. But most of the work was done in the conversations between attendees, where we could identify what our common challenges were, what our thinking was about how to address those challenges, and to be inspired, to be prompted by, to begin new ways of thinking, to gain new perspectives, and to start to formulate those plans to move forward. And so this effort today is very much like that. And what I hope to do today is to encourage you, A, to take those prompts and let them stimulate your thinking. B, to open the dialogue with the speakers and more importantly with the other folks attending. And C, to continue to foster that kind of collaborative dialogue in every part of your life as you're looking at how to face down this crisis. How can we keep those conversations alive? How can we inspire and stimulate and encourage each other to find those solutions? How can we be a collaborative group of folks in the world and move this forward together? So I'd encourage you to open your perspectives a bit and be ready to talk, not to me and the speakers, which you're welcome to, but make sure you're ready to talk to each other and the other folks around you. This crisis, of course, is a little more profound than the economic crisis, the global financial crisis was, not solely for the scope of the economic damage, but because it is damaging at such an intense level for the health of so many people. This is quite unique in my lifetime. We haven't seen this kind of global pandemic since the early part of the 20th century. Scientists and public health professionals have told us that this is going to happen. We knew somewhere along the line it was going to happen. But, you know, if things don't happen in your lifetime, the fact that the threat exists sort of starts to get backgrounded for you. So we are jarred into a new reality by this manifestation of a threat that we knew was possible. And so we have to be very conscious of that. We have to be thoughtful that this particular crisis is very different from crises we've faced in the past. It has many, in fact, nearly all of the challenges of the economic crisis of a decade ago, with the added complications of a tremendous amount of new unknowns. And I think the thing to be thoughtful about here is that the unknowns we're facing here are not only unknown at this moment, but maybe unknowable for a long time into the future. So all the plans that we make, all the thinking that we have about how to progress in the current situation are going to be influenced by as yet to be discovered attributes of this virus and of its impacts on our health and of how it spreads, what the risks are, what the possible solutions are in terms of vaccination or medical treatments, et cetera. So that series of unknowns will undoubtedly impact us all as we go forward. I'm going to step back into the narrow rather than the broad and take a look at coffee specifically. Very well illustrated in Karthik's presentation is coffee tends to be a relatively resilient product, tends to be relatively price inelastic, and consumption tends to be relatively inelastic. And in fact, that's sort of what's played out here. It played out very much this way in 2008, 2009, is that overall coffee consumption had a moderate downturn, but not a profound one. And what really shifted was the venue of consumption. So the place of consumption for specialty coffee has undoubtedly been principally out of the home, principally in cafes and coffee houses. And in 2008, 2009, the consumption venue shifted, but it was a very temporary thing. The venue shifted principally because of people's economic concerns. Today, it's really dramatically complicated by people's health concerns. So the need to be socially distant has had a tremendous impact, obviously, on the cafe and restaurant hospitality sector, and that is very profoundly felt for coffee. The good news underlying that is that the consumption has stayed relatively strong. The venue of consumption has shifted to the home. There has been some downward trading in coffee quality. Consumers at the initial outset of stay-at-home orders and quarantines drove them to convenient, recognizable brands, principally off of supermarket shelves. It's early for us to be able to get this data because it's hard to acquire, but here in North America and in the US in particular, we have good anecdotal evidence that this time specialty consumers seem to be moving their specialty preference into the home with them. So online sales and curbside sales from specialty coffee roasters have moved into the home fairly effectively. So the specialty coffee roasters and cafes who had a good platform for online sales and a remote access to their cafes have done relatively well here. And we've seen that sort of throughout in talking with green coffee traders. The initial shift was to move a lot of coffee, both off spot and forward, into the hands of large commercial roasters. But after that initial sort of hoarding and panic purchasing that took place in consumer packaged goods on grocery store shelves, we've seen people start to access new ways of acquiring specialty coffee and transferring their specialty coffee habit into the home. So lots of home brewing devices, traditional and unique, have seen spikes in sales, and we've seen lots of people trying to figure out how can I recreate that specialty coffee experience, at least from a gustatory experience in my home, so I don't, in this period of time when I can't visit the coffee house, I can at least have great coffee in my home. And there's been a tremendous amount of that. And we've seen it sort of throughout in North America in particular. We've seen it sort of throughout the domestic approach to food and beverage. Folks who spend a lot of time eating great food outside of their homes now find themselves trying to get ready to prepare meals from their favorite restaurants, or finding access to other ingredients. Or, the most sort of famous meme here in the US is the number of people who have started baking their own bread, which is a fantastic return to a relatively simple task. But it's indicative of people's desire to have those things that they prized before the current crisis still be possible for them. So to that degree, this current crisis, although in many ways much more challenging than the 2008-2009 financial crisis, has had some bright spots. We have seen more transfer of specialty coffee habits into the home, and not just a change in venue. I would note, by the way, that one of the things that makes specialty coffee special, one of its many attributes, is not purely the organoleptic or gustatory experience of drinking a great cup of coffee. Part of the experience of coffee is the ambiance, the environment, the opportunity to share time and space and thoughts, and the warm act of consuming coffee with others around us. And that's a thing that's very hard to transfer into the home. And that's the thing that provides, I think, some optimism for the future of specialty coffee in the cafe environment. I'm going to shift gears now and go back and talk about something that, if you look at the dates on this slide, I think it's worth noting. This is the sort of oldest set of slides I could find in my own collection of slides that I made to look at the topic I want to address right now, which is what's the situation for coffee as a global marketplace. So we'll start here at the top of it, which these are the figures from 2012, looking backwards to the beginning of the millennium. And it's a balance of production versus consumption. And you can see, if you sort of take a look at the smooth line there, that production and consumption have been more or less on the same trend line and have been more or less in parity. There's been years where there's more production than there's consumption. There's been years when there's more consumption than production, but the general trend has been towards parity, which means that the demand growth has been relatively steady and the production growth has been there to meet it. So that's been generally a good trend for coffee. And if you looked at the numbers extended out to the 2019-20 crop year, you're going to see many of the same things, this sort of general parity between production and consumption. And that's, from the macro point, that's a good thing. The outlook for the current crop is that while consumption is likely to be down overall production is also likely to be just a bit higher than overall consumption. So we're going to see a market in which there's probably slightly more coffee than market demand will take up, but that demand is not likely to be profoundly lower than the production. It remains to be seen what the final impacts on coffee production are, not only from the financial perspective, but much more importantly from the human perspective. How much will we have access to labor? What will be the logistical challenges? What will consumption in producing countries be like? Will it continue to grow? Will consumption in emerging economies continue to grow at the pace it has been? Brazil released a statement 2 or 3 days ago that domestic consumption in Brazil, and Brazil is the second largest consumer in the world, was off by something like 30% in April. Now that seems that seems fairly hard to swallow from where I sit, but it's an unknown that we'll have to look for more information as we go forward. How will domestic consumption be impacted in producing countries and non-traditional consuming countries? This is a forecast for consumption that, again, this dates back to 2012. You can see the starting date of this, and it predicted that by 2020, in the sort of highest, most aspirational, most optimistic views of consumption, that we would reach levels of about 155 million bags of total consumption worldwide. We have blown through that trend line. Actual consumption worldwide is somewhere north of 165 million bags. So consumption has been quite strong in the period between 2012 and now. That growth has been profound. Likely we're going to slow down. That trend is going to slow down a bit. It remains to be seen where and how it will slow down and to what degree it will slow down, and really for how long that slowdown will continue. Nonetheless, it looks like overall consumption in the current year is still likely to be strong at 160 million bags, or potentially a little better than that. This is a slide, and again, this is why I went back in time. I really wanted to see the first time that I presented this particular data anywhere. And this is the earliest version of this that I could find. I may have presented it earlier, but this is again this is me going the wrong direction, sorry. This is a look at the price trend between 2010 and 2013. And we could see what was happening there. Prices had spiked in 2011 on the basis of a shortfall in Colombia that had really come to roost in the market. And we could see that as that coffee started to return to market, as Colombia started to produce again in quantity, prices started to drop fairly rapidly. At the bottom line, that yellow line is actually a look at what was going on in the London markets, in the Robusta markets. And you can see, while there was a downward trend in price, there was not the same kind of accelerated change, not the huge spike that we saw in New York. And this is an important thing to note. We're seeing something not dissimilar. As noted in 2018, we reached some extraordinarily low prices. In August 2018, the New York market was well below $1, which is the first time it had happened in over a decade. We've seen prices have some rises and falls. We got up around the $1.30 level in the early part of this year. But we continue to see a downward trend in New York and a downward trend in London. This overall downward trend obviously has huge implications for producers, and it raises many of the issues that we have had to confront on a cyclical basis about how coffee pricing is reflected in commodity markets. This next slide is sort of the crux of that biscuit. If you take a look at this, what you can see, and again, these trend lines are very much the same today as they were a decade ago. Over the course of the last 30 years, coffee production in the world has jumped from somewhere around 80 million bags in total to this 165 million bags of production that we see today. But what's critical to note is essentially 100% of that growth in production has occurred in natural coffees, and principally in natural Brazils, natural Arabicas, and in Robusta coffees. So the Robusta growth and the natural Arabica growth has been essentially 100% of that growth. The production and consumption of washed Arabica coffees, of what the futures market classifies as milds, has been essentially flat. It's been hovering around the 40 million bag range for more than 3 decades now. It's had some ups and downs. It's been as low as 31 or 32 million. It's been up slightly over 40 million, but it's been a relatively narrow band, and it continues in that band. And this is worth noting because some of the impacts we're seeing in the marketplace today are driven by this behavior. For most of us in the specialty coffee world, washed milds are a proxy for specialty coffee. This is, by the way, not meant to suggest that there aren't great specialty natural coffees. There are, but in terms of global trade, the numbers we're talking about really are a division between washed Arabicas, natural Arabicas, and Robustas. And we're seeing this trend continue. Washed Arabica production is still severely challenged. The impact of all of this is that you get a marketplace where prices are low because overall supply is high. So we have lots and lots of coffee writ large, more coffee than probably the world can consume, but relatively tight supplies of washed Arabica coffees. That changes the activity of the market in a couple of ways. One is even though it's hard for us to buy those great coffees, hard for us to find those washed Arabica coffees, overall market prices tend to diminish because the overarching supply of coffee, the coffee that meets the needs of commercial roasters, that meets the needs of the soluble producers, that meets the needs of the world's thirst for coffee as a caffeine carrying beverage, there's plenty of coffee. Much less coffee available and essentially no growth in the washed Arabica category. The outcome of that scenario is what we're seeing in the marketplace today. While the market basis price is quite low, the differential price for quality is continuing to increase, and it continues to increase at a fairly dramatic pace. This is particularly dangerous for a number of reasons. One is that it makes it very hard to do any kind of price risk management if you are on the production side of it. So whether you're a smallholder aggregated into a cooperative, or whether you're a larger farm, whether you're an exporter, the opportunity to put in sophisticated price risk management tools, no matter what your access to finance is severely impacted by the balance of final pricing determined by the differential versus the basis price. So this is creating a new set of challenges, and it's one that we've seen before. It will ultimately break, and when that happens, there will be a lot of financial pain for folks who are not able to adequately hedge. So this problem will get worse before it gets better, I'm afraid. We have seen buyers trading down a bit. Definitely at the outset of this, as I said, people went to the grocery store, they went to the supermarket, and they bought the brand that they knew in the past. That is definitely a trade down in quality. On the bright side, we're seeing people start to return to the marketplace, not going to cafes necessarily, but getting into specialty coffee in the home consumption market through the more successful specialty roasters, those who have presented easy access. Uncertainty is still the biggest problem here. The unknowns are still profound. When will we reemerge from quarantine? It's a country by country and a region by region question. Here in the US, it's a state by state and perhaps even county by county question. But what is really profoundly unknown is, will this virus have a resurgence? Will we see an uptick in transmission again? Will we be able to cope with that if it happens? What will those impacts be? Will we see another constriction of economic activity as a result? These are very unknown. Until we have a longer term solution in terms of a vaccination or a viable medical treatment option, uncertainty, those unknowns around the risks of this virus are going to continue to have extraordinary impacts on the marketplace. Climate change remains. We'd like to think that we have the liberty to focus all of our attention on the current crisis, but the overarching looming crisis that is climate change in the background continues to create profound risks with uncertainty in weather patterns, with unusually intense climatic conditions. Those things are going forward in the background. The planet continues to react to our machinations on it in profound ways, and our attention seems to be quite limited there. And then, in spite of massive infusions into the markets, it has been and remains challenging for small businesses, for producers, for high-risk activities like coffee farming to get access to finance, and that will continue to be a problem. You may have the thought to get out and open a unique kind of coffee venue today, but access to the capital to move in that direction will be limited by the risk aversion that is typical in a crisis scenario. All of these problems continue to exist. Solutions to them will have to come over time, but we need to be well aware of these potentials and these ongoing risks. Then finally, one of the things about a crisis is that it creates new opportunities. And I think Karthik did a great job of looking at some of the tactical opportunities that will arise on the other side of this, or even during this current crisis. I'd suggest a few others that are worth thinking about in a more strategic sense. First and foremost is there's room for new business models. There's no question that that the current environment has made us have to look at the challenges of the existing business models throughout the coffee economy, both at the production level and at the consumption level. The cafe model of the past may not be a viable and likely not to be a viable model for the future. The farming model of the past may not be a farming model for the future. And there's great work happening out there on this approach to business. We've seen the beginnings of a fairly robust movement towards vertical integration from producers and downward vertical integration from traders and roasters. Lots of ripples in that arena. I have the pleasure of working with a really sort of forward-thinking Ethiopian farming group at Matad, who have focused on quality, but have also focused on changing the business model so that their production and their access to technology, their access to all the steps of production in producing great quality green coffee are shared outward with outgrowers in the vicinity of their principal farming operations. And I think we've seen a number of these kinds of collaborative business models beginning to spring up, not only in Ethiopia, but we see potential in other parts of East Africa. We see potential in South America, and ultimately we will see these possibilities arise around the world of coffee. The next opportunity to me is that consumers are really braced for some sort of new normal. I don't think it's possible to have a conversation today about our current reality and our future reality without having a general consensus that whatever the future is going to look like, it's going to look different than the past looked. And there's no question that people will have to make accommodations of all kinds, but from those accommodations, there's an opportunity for change. There's an opportunity to do new and exciting things. And understanding how the consumer of the future will take their place in the coffee value chain will be a key to successful business going forward. Also, technology continues to move forward. Technology continues to grow and change how we approach the world. Witness the thing we're all engaged in here today. The Zoom conference, Zoom call is ubiquitous in the environment today. This was a word that was not associated
Okay. We seem to be having some problems here.
Yeah, I think it's an audio issue on Rick's end.
Okay.
I think he was close to wrapping up. We'll try to get him back on if he's not wrapped up yet. So
Very
maybe
good.
we can just kind of move on to the next panel. That was awesome. We'll just find out what happened to Rick.
Okay. Well, anyway, I do want to thank you, Rick, for such a wonderful presentation, because you really helped us understand the realities of today in a very clear and forthright manner. As a matter of fact, you explained very well the good, the bad, and the uncertain. And I really appreciate the optimism you're giving us, especially on this last area, helping us look for new important ways to continue in the business, to see which way it's going to evolve, right, in the near future. So thank you so much for that, and for helping us on this event jump. So I think now we can begin the first panel. Are we okay for that, Abbas?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. So let me see, how do we?
All right.
Where's
So the
all
next
guys?
panel, yep, understanding the small farmer's needs. Let's get everyone up.
Okay,
May
how
take
do
a
we?
minute or two to get everyone going.
Very good.
All right.
Hey, there's Carl. There's one.
Hello.
Hello. Okay. Everybody else up here with us, and you're looking pretty good.
Yeah, we got Carl. Got a couple of folks still joining. Maybe we'll take a minute or two. Yes, it's a little slower in virtual world. In the real world, you just go and walk to the front and sit on a chair.
Hey, there's Edgar. Look.
There
I
you
can see
go.
you on TV. There we go. We're all coming along. That's excellent. Ezekiel.
There we got Edgar.
We got Edgar, Carl.
Gotta get
Okay. Coming up now.
Kilito and Perpetue.
Okay, Perpetue, if you can open your video, that would be excellent. And
All right.
also,
I think we're ready to rock.
the Edgar also. Oh, not Edgar. Ezekiel. Oh, there's
Yep.
Ezekiel. Everybody's on. Okay. Let me take a couple minutes first and introduce our panelists to everybody with a little bit more detail. I know that they were mentioned earlier, but I would like to mention that with Perpetue Musinga, known as Queen P, we're so pleased to have her with us. We have royalty on our panel, which is just so exciting. And I don't know if it was mentioned earlier, but she works with Sustainable Harvest, and you know, she's really a wonderful person to have on our panel. Queen P, we're happy that you're with us because you do so much training work in the farm area with women, and it's just incredible. So I know that you're going to give us a very real and wonderful, or a clear understanding of what's happening in Rwanda and other parts of Africa, and what's being done now. So it's great that you're on board with us. Okay. Also,
okay, thanks so much, Damian.
Oh, you're welcome.
And thank you for ABBAS for your initiative to host and to organize this jump event. So the question was, what I'm going to discuss is the challenges or the problem were brought on by COVID-19.
Right. Okay. Well, pretty soon I'll get to you. Just a second. I just want to continue introducing that. We have KARL WIENHOLD with us also, founder of Cedro Alto Coffee in Colombia. And this is just excellent. KARL, nice to see you. And
hello, everyone.
I love you're welcome. I love your project because what you do is just excellent with working with smaller farmers, upgrading their coffee, getting it to port. And it's a big project. So I'm looking forward to listening from hearing from you very shortly. Also, there's EDGARD BRESSANI, who's well known in the coffee world, and an ambassador of coffee. Look at that, all the way from Brazil. And it's wonderful to have you with us. EDGARD works with small farmers, farms of all sizes, and the Capricornio coffee, and the whole range of coffee from seed all the way to export, which is just incredible. So we're going to have a very good understanding what's happening in that part of the world also. Also,
thank you, Damian.
You're welcome, Edgar. That's great. Edgar, we have Ezequiel Batista, good friend of mine in Panama, and he also works with small farms. He owns one as well as family in the community. What's good about, another thing that's great about Ezequiel is that he manages a larger farm with the dry mill for exporting also with Barú Black Mountain. And thanks to the wonderful people in Barú Black Mountain, the owners and Ezequiel, It makes possible the exporting of coffees from smaller farms, such as my project, so far away. It makes it possible to get our coffee out of the country. So, EZEQUIEL, thanks for your hard work. Things are moving. So that's our panelists. Now, we do have a small list of questions, and we're looking forward to hearing these answers. So I just have my list. Okay, so the first question, and I guess we'll start off with Queen P, okay, is if you could explain to us what challenges or problems were brought on by COVID-19 in Rwanda. Queen P, what can you tell us?
Okay, the challenges or the problem were brought by COVID-19. You know, sustainable growers work with Rwandan women cooperatives. So the first challenges was the cooperative members are expected to carry out farming activities each day. So most of them working in the group. Due to the social distance rules, group of farming cannot work together. So instead, only one farmers can work in their area at that time. So this social distance was decreased activity level, bring down daily productivity level for the cooperatives. That was the first challenges we have met with our cooperatives. The other challenges was the coffee cherries are transported from farm plot to the coffee washing station using the plastic bucket. So before COVID-19, farmers could find the motorcycle or bicycle to help them transport the cherries. Because of the social distance and transport regulation, the only option was to carry their cherries by head, carrying those baskets and deliver to the washing stations. And of course, they was walking and using their feet. So the third one, like the biggest challenge we have met, some coffee washing station was a struggle to get working capital. Because of some bank branch near cooperatives closed at the starting of the harvesting area. And so here, because of that lockdown in the beginning of March, most of the branches in the rural area was closed because of the policies. So withdrawal money was limited. The farmers were not allowed to withdraw over 1 million Rwandan money francs per day. So it was a challenge considering coffee washing station cash flow per day during the coffee harvesting and processing season.
Okay, well, that's certainly quite a lot. So thank you for sharing that with us, and we'll be back to you pretty soon. So right now, let's hear what's happening in Colombia. KARL, what can you tell us about the challenges or problems brought on by COVID?
Sure. Again, speaking only to the situation that I've seen personally in Colombia, mostly in the central, west, and south of the country. There have been some of the same issues that others have been seeing elsewhere in the world. It's difficult for pickers to arrive to the farms because we're in the high harvest right now in a lot of areas, and pickers that normally come from other parts of the country aren't around. This is, of course, mitigated by the lack of employment in the small towns and areas near where farming is happening. So a lot of people that work in stores and restaurants and things are going up to farms. So this has softened the impact of the picker shortage in a lot of areas. We've heard of some cases where the price of picking has increased, but not in all. There have been some alarm bells sounding about this, but at least my personal contacts have found that it's been marginal, the impact. Transportation has been difficult. Some of the prices of transportation have been increasing. Some of the timing issues have been strange because farmers are harvesting and they need to sell immediately for cash flow reasons, but then sometimes transportation isn't available. And I've also been hearing that food prices for some farmers depend more on purchased food than others, but the food prices have been high also because of the transportation issues. But really, these problems in comparison to other problems we've seen other years, I mean, they could be worse, to be honest. This may be a controversial opinion, but I'm going to propose that the real impact and problems for producers are not yet being felt. The spread of coronavirus has been slower getting into secluded rural areas. So we'll see how that develops. In most of the small towns where our partners are working, there have not been a lot of cases. Maybe there will be later on. Maybe they'll be able to avoid it. Mostly, we'll see. And really, I think the market is what could potentially cause big problems down the road. So right now, the commodity price locally here in Colombia is extraordinarily high. It has been for the last two and a half months. Of course, it's gone down a little bit, but it's still quite good. Farmers are selling commodity in the commodity market for prices well above production cost. And that's because of one, the physical differential for Colombian mild Arabica, and two, the stark devaluation of the Colombian peso, mostly due to the oil price drop. So farmers selling in Colombian pesos are earning quite a lot of Colombian pesos for any quality. So a lot are selling wet coffee so that they don't earn, just as a reference, most farmers are doing their own wet milling, they're doing their own depulping and fermentation here, and some are drying some of the time. But right now there's an incentive to sell wet coffee, even though the price is lower, just to take advantage of high prices. So that's great for farmers, but there's very little interest in producing specialty coffee right now because of the high price for commodity coffee. So on one hand, why bother? And on the other hand, high-end specialty demand is pretty soft right now for a lot of exporters, including for our own group. So that's fine. Farmers aren't selling at a loss, even though the New York C price is quite low. But my concern is that if people take the year off of specialty, they'll lose the consistency with their buyers, the roasters in other parts of the world that are counting on enjoying their coffee year in and year out. If they don't produce it this year because there's no real financial incentive to do so, those roasters are going to find somebody else to buy from. And then next year, what's the situation going to be? Maybe we're back to business as usual. Selling into the commodity market is largely unprofitable, but then all those roasters will have already found somebody else to source from. So I could see this being more of an issue for farmers, potentially even next year. Just as an idea, feel free to disagree.
Okay, that's incredible. Thank you very much. So Edgard, what can you tell us about what's happening in Brazil now on the challenges of COVID?
Well, as an exporter and having a different model of business with our Four Seasons project, Capricornio has been impacted in several ways. And Four Seasons, when I say, it means that we are with the farmers around the year, sharing practices on planting, fertilizing, all the good practices in harvesting, post-harvesting, and quality control, and selling their coffees, But so that we have to make sure that we can supply the coffees to our 28 countries. But this has been especially difficult now in these COVID days. But we cannot stop because coffee does not wait. So if we wait to go to the fields, the maturation will speed up, and we will lose this window of cherries that we use for producing honeys and fully washed. So we have these farm partners that are very small. We have 380 farms having 3 hectares each in Norte Pioneiro, and also 120 different farms in Norte Novo. These are in Paraná state, and also we have farms in São Paulo state. But most of them, of these ones, are in mountainous areas. and they rely heavily on labor. So the labor is a problem. We have, suggested them not to hire people above 50 years old so that they, bring more risk with the pandemic. And but we have to remember also that most of the workers that work in the fields in coffee, are old people. So there is being a shortage in terms of labor in Brazil. We also had to create at the beginning a booklet, sharing, all these informations about COVID and how to help them, to protect employees when they are transporting people on the farm, or how to maintain a certain distance, because all Latins, we are very, we touch, we kiss. And so we had to tell them, not to be so close, and even, keep their items when they are harvesting, not, sharing buckets or plastic covers and anything. So this was something we did at the beginning. How to clean tractors, the vehicles that they use, but harvest has started in many regions in Brazil. We have 30 different ones, and our harvest starts in April and then goes up to December. So some areas will be more affected because they started earlier, earlier than the others. Maybe people starting in September will be not so affected. And I also heard a lot about some of these farms. They were asking me, should I invest in quality? Should I invest in specialty coffee? It's what KARL is saying, has just said. And I told them, yes, please, we need specialty coffee, and this will bring your revenues up, because if you produce only the commodity coffees, we are exporters of specialty coffees. So the project I have with you is for specialty coffee. So I have no coffee to sell. So we've been telling them and supporting them that, the coffees will be bought, and they do not have to worry. But we have had more than 1,000 deaths a day already in Brazil. And we had 1,200 the past days. But as KARL mentioned this also, in terms of the rural areas are more secluded. And I think that June and July will be worse in Brazil. So I think we will have more and more cases coming. So maybe August, September, we will see, less things happening. We also are constructing and finishing our new Capricornio Coffee's industrial park. We had shortage in labor because of all these people that, the companies were not allowing them to go and finish what they had. And we see that many people have lost their jobs because we have kept all our employees, and we are also hiring for the new warehouse. And I have never received so many emails in my life for job positions. I think, many people have lost their jobs, and they're trying hard to find, anything that they can find now. So it's Brazil has been helping people, the ones that are in special need, giving them a small amount of money. But we see that the unemployment rate will grow in the near future. I'm doing home office. I've been taking care of my parents for the past 70 days, and I was talking to Rick before we started the conference, and I have never stayed so much in Brazil in the past 20 years. Of events canceled and of traveling prohibited. I love to be home, but I'm starting to miss my coffee friends. And I also have a roastery, and my roastery Bravo Café is also going through hard times because we sell a lot of coffees to food service restaurants and supermarkets, and this drop of 30%. I know, not sure if these numbers are real, but we are feeling a lot, because of the home consumption. In the first month, like April and March, they were still, high, and people were, maybe because of the panic, they went to the supermarkets and bought. But now it has reflected, people, I think they have stocks of coffee at home, and let's see if the demand, will go back to what they were, pre-virus. I'm not sure about that, and many shops close in the country. I'm sad about that.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that information also. And now we're going to ask Ezequiel Batista the information. His English is more or less, so we're going to be I'll ask him in Spanish. Ezequiel, entonces, ¿qué problemas se presentaron con el COVID-19 allá en tu sector?
Hola, Damián.
Ahí está.
A todos. Buenos días. Bueno, aquí donde nosotros en Panamá, uno de los problemas más graves tiene que ver con la mano de obra. Trabajamos con la mayoría de los trabajadores para cuidar y mantener la finca son indígenas. Así que es uno de los problemas más graves que tenemos, pocos trabajadores para cuidar las fincas.
Okay, so what Ezequiel is saying then is that one of the biggest problems they have has to do with labor, having enough workers. They usually work with the Nobe Indians or First Nation Nobes in the area. They're the ones that do a lot of the harvesting and farm work in the area. But with this problem, it's been hard to get enough workers to maintain the farms. Continuing. Ezequiel. ¿Había más también?
Sí, otro problema también que ha venido con el COVID-19 también es que muchos contratos para la venta de café se han suspendido, se han dejado para después o inclusive muchos se han perdido. O sea, han suspendido contratos que tenían con algunos cafetaleros aquí en Panamá.
Okay. So here's another problem that they had is that some of the contracts that they've had for selling their coffee out has been postponed or even canceled outright due to the fact that the coffee sales in Europe and in particular have come to a standstill. So that affected them greatly. Okay.
Y un tercer problema que también hemos tenido, por ejemplo, para exportar, para las exportaciones, todo el trámite que conlleva una exportación con aduanas, con las navieras y todo esto está muy lento, así que el trámite para una exportación ahora mismo es bastante lento.
Okay, and here's a third problem, and he's not kidding here, is that with this problem, so getting all the paperwork done, government permits and all that stuff to get the coffee out of port has just been at a standstill and it's been extremely frustrating, and he's not kidding, it's the truth. Okay. ¿Está bien ahí, Ezequiel? Muy bien. Okay, entonces we'll go to question number 2 then. And let's, okay, back to you, Green Pea. What can you tell us, please, about how you met these terrible challenges that you've been facing and with what success rate?
There was finding a way to deliver coffee at home. Like, for example, Question Coffee as social enterprise, teaching customers to make coffee at home through social media, adapting takeaway only in the cafe, or social distance for customers, and searching for new platform like Alibaba to find a new market for coffee. Like here, for example, in the first week of May, Gorilla Cafe sales happen here in May, and more company will join that Alibaba in coming month.
Oh.
And the second one, we was improve the cooperation and good relationship with everyone who is involved in the coffee production to mitigate together the negativity impact caused by COVID-19 and have ongoing effective conversation. And the other one is government of Rwanda has been very supportive during this COVID-19 outbreak in terms of providing food for the essential needs. Like essential needs is like hand sanitizer, like soap, like mask for the low class people and lowering the fuel costs so which has been helpful to allow Rwandan coffee farmers in terms of transportation, and more needs to be done. So what our government was looking forward, we've partnered with NGOs, with private sector. So in coming month, they are going to allow motorcycle will be back in operations, like the buses, like bicycle, in this the 1st June 2020. So which means 1st June, it's on Monday next week. Yeah.
Oh, that's good news.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Queen. And so now, KARL, how have you been overcoming the challenges that COVID brought on?
Well, I don't have a whole lot to add here.
Yeah.
Honestly, most of what I've been seeing going on is pretty reactive. It's just kind of taking what's coming at us, just doing what we can. And I mentioned that all this has been really softened by the extraordinarily high local price of coffee in Colombian pesos. So that's been all right. A lot of people are selling on forward contracts, and of course, this does not have anything to do with the high-end specialty market, but the FNC and some other related organizations have opened up the possibility of forward selling commodity grade coffee, of course, based on, at a certain time in the future, if you have a later harvest for the price right now, or if you were able to fix it a few weeks ago, even better. So people have been doing that. And yeah, and also, the pickers coming from small towns, of course, they're not as fast as the pros, but they're getting the job done. So yeah, honestly, just kind of waiting and watching around here.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so Edgar, how can you the challenges that you're facing with the labor shortage and things? Edgar,
well, I think we have been yeah, go ahead, Damien. Yeah.
No, please do.
I think we have been successful with the measures that we have implemented. The booklet has been very helpful. Our agronomists have visited the farms. They are supporting the farms. We also have created a WhatsApp group so that we have question and answer fast to people when they are in need, and we are not currently visiting that particular farm. We also had here some clients, asking for the possibility to postpone shipments or cancel contracts, but we managed to come to a solution together, because we know, there is always hedging costs, also the dollar, hedging of the dollar and everything, and sometimes even the dollar hedging and also the euro hedging. So it's not very simple. There are several costs involved, but we managed to find a solution for that. We also donated 3,000 masks to these people so that they could use it and be more protected. I hope also that we can soon, maybe in 2 months, go back to our new normal. I hope also that during this intense contamination with the virus now in June, July, the port does not stop, because this is then a problem, because we wouldn't have no containers coming, and then when we start exporting, we might have a shortage in the number of containers. We were also very worried about the possibility of the lack of jute, because of Bangladesh port, and so we managed to buy our jute, although we use very little of jute. We prefer the polypropylene bags because of maintaining quality with the liners then inside. We don't like that taste of jute when it comes to the coffee. And also a problem we've had recently is the ice futures falling. So when we are exporting the coffees, these coffees, the producer gets better prices for this. But if he has to sell coffees that are not specialty in the domestic market, and then the prices are lower. So this will affect this year's results. The dollar, for example, $1 was 5.3 reais, on Friday. So it's in this, of course, will impact the cost of fuel and also the cost of fertilizers. And so it's always like a Russian roulette and also a giant ball rolling and bringing problems. And we have to, hope that people continue, that this year is a year of, maybe we won't be ever in the same world, but we have to fight hard for the producers to keep on, trying to produce coffee, because we've been having a lot of competition with soy, sugarcane, and other crops. So being able to help them, mainly these small producers that we work with, it's for them to stay, stay at their farms and also pay them a good price, so that the family will be more involved. Kids will go back to the farm and to the small estates and work and continue the legacy of the family. Otherwise, in the future, who is going to supply this 300 million bags that we might have in 2050 if the world grows 2.5%? If it grows 1.5%, it's going to be 200 million bags. But we still have we need producers to produce that. So we need to keep these people.
Excellent. Now, you made some excellent points there. I really like that. The communication and your foresight to understand the need for to get the younger people back to the farms. That's
absolutely.
So
this is what we fight every day here, because we have to help. We have a beautiful case of a farmer. They're very small, one of these that have 3 hectares, and his 2 kids study agronomy. They drive 2 hours to go to college every end of the day, because they study at night, and then they drive back 2 hours more, and next day they work at the farm to help. But we love to be part of this project and to love to be with this family, because they are certainly staying there and continuing to produce coffees. And if they find, and if they're producing specialty coffees, it's even better, because they can get better prices and see that it compensates to be there.
Exactly. Incredible. Thank you. Entonces, Gielito, estamos contigo. ¿Cómo has enfrentado esta situación, este problema de COVID? ¿Y qué has logrado?
Bueno, una de las cosas que hemos tenido que hacer es solicitar algunos permisos para con las instituciones aquí en Panamá para poder por lo menos mover a nuestros clientes. Eso es algo que hemos de hacer.
Okay, you kind of got choppy there. I didn't quite get that. Estaba un poco roto ahí. No sé si puedes repetir tu respeto, por favor.
Sí, una de las cosas que hemos tenido que hacer es solicitar algunos permisos aquí en las autoridades en Panamá que nos permitan movilizarnos para por lo menos poder entregar muestras o enviar muestras a nuestros clientes.
Oh, okay, very good. What he's saying is that they had to get special permits from the government, which allow them to send out samples, coffee samples, to their clients outside of Panama. That's a very important step. Okay, excelente, Gielito. ¿Y qué más? ¿Cómo te fue?
Y también hemos tenido que organizar el trabajo de la finca con menos personal, pero organizarlo bien para lograr mantener la finca y procesar el café.
Muy bien. And so what they had to do that is with less workers, so they had to organize and do some managing skills to kind of juggle the workers around to make sure the farm maintenance was always kept up to date. So that's truly important. And Ezequiel, ¿cómo te fue con las muestras? ¿Lograste vender tu café siempre?
Sí, logramos enviar las muestras y bueno, gran parte del café está vendido y ya se envió parte del café. Vamos a lograr que, bueno, nos aprobaron las muestras y vamos a enviar el siguiente,
Okay.
otra cantidad de café a Europa.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. And so, yeah, they were able to get the samples out and that allowed them to sell most of the coffee that they had stored up. So they're still doing some more sales, and it's actually helping me do some sales also. So that's excellent. Gracias, Quelito. Muy bien. All right, third question. Returning to Queen P. Here's a nice question. What can be done to create awareness and really give small farm holders a niche in the specialty coffee market? What can you say, Queen P?
Okay, thank you so much. What we supposed be done to create awareness? Number one is direct trade should be done. We're supposed to make sure there is no like person side. It's supposed to be transparent to make sure all the trade done well. The other one is to encourage small farmers holder to form and join cooperative to facilitate training program. You know, here in Rwanda, we train farmers or coffee producers to grow specialty coffee. Like for example, we have a like NGO Sustainable Growers Rwanda. It's trained the farmers. So it's better to encourage all the coffee producers to join the cooperatives and working together. The other topic, what they're supposed to do, we would carry out of more global coffee conference in the coffee producers country to allow farmers to be the part of conference in the coffee producing country. So which means their input and be aware of everything going in the coffee world. So we supposed organized like event like this one. So to make sure and we invite the coffee farmers to join that event. Like for instance, Let's Talk Coffee. Let's Talk Coffee is a global conference organized by Sustainable Harvest Inc. It's annually event. It is a great model for me. So every year it is organized a new coffee producing country to bring together all members of the coffee supply chain. So I think the people who is in Colombia or who is in Brazil, everyone knows that event, and some of you was already attend that event. So in the press, they bring that event in the press to share challenges and build relationship by finding solution that work all the supply chain. So Sustainable Growers Rwanda has hosted a 4 Let's Talk Coffee program, coffee conference, which hosts farmers, cooperative leaders, government, buyers, roasters, and other coffee stakeholders for like 3 days in Kigali. So like last year, we have hosted Let's Talk Coffee Kigali. So, so we need more event like this one. We need more event like Jump Conference. So we need more event who can put together coffee producers, like to make sure the coffee producers, they will not stay in the village just grown coffee. So it's time to bring them together and meet the buyers so they can have like good relationship, they can discuss, they can know who is drink our coffee, so who is buy our coffee. So that is my suggestion. Thank you.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. Really, that's right. To get the smaller producers out of the farm and put them in the face of the buyers also, which is what we're doing here in Jump. Great work, thank you. And KARL, what can you say to that question? What can be done to create awareness for the smaller farmers to get into the specialty coffee market a little better?
Sure. Again, a really large question with a very complex answer. But just to take an example, I think one thing that's extremely important would be consumer education. Really, I believe the end consumer is the only actor in the supply chain that can really dictate to the rest of us how we need to work in order to keep their business. So I think one of the greatest responsibilities we have is to educate consumers as to the objective realities for producers as well as other supply chain actors, express in real tangible terms the impact of different supply chain configurations and the real impact of the decision that they're making with their money on the store shelf. In order to create the economic obligation to work in a way that honors and empowers and compensates smallholders in a way that's relative to the value created.
That's great. So education is key, right? It really is. Thank you, Carl.
Yep. Sure.
Okay, hey, EDGARD, but what can be done? Now you're already exporting into the specialty coffee business. What do you think, what more can be done to help promote the smaller farmers, not maybe just in Brazil, but in other parts? What do you think?
I think we have to continue to focus on the promotion of these coffees. At Capricornio, we focus on smallholders, I've mentioned, and I travel usually around 180 days promoting them. This year will not be the case, I cannot travel that much, but we're, organizing several ways to continue promoting these farms, organizing, small events, bringing these producers to talk to the clients so that they, connect and see the value of the support they give to these people. We also work close here in Brazil with women producers. We export coffees from 20 women, they are farm owners, but they are farm owners, the ones that pick the coffees themselves. It's not the women that own the farm but don't work in coffee. So they go there, they have their fields, they do selective picking, they exchange work. So one goes to the farm of the other, and so if one works 3 days for the other, she will go and work and pay back the days she was selective picking coffees. So we also have been building this actually covered patios with African beds for them, with the support of our clients, because here in Brazil, in the area where we are with this project, it's more of a Costa Rica's weather. It rains more during the winter, and it's more humid. So the covered patios and with the African beds help them to go to bed at night and sleep, and not to worry that the coffee is under the rain in the middle of the night. So we've worked successfully with our clients, getting funds to build this African beds for them. And also, I think with this pandemic, we have to be always, thinking and what else, what else can I do? This has helped me realize that I could expand the borders of Capricornio. Capricornio works in São Paulo and Paraná state. We mainly work in 6 different regions in these 2 states. And now I have a new project called Beyond. It's Beyond Gram Cru coffees, and we will be exporting micro lots, coffees above 88 points from all these 30 different producing regions in Brazil. Coffees with special preparations, coffee with fermentation, and all these amazing coffees. I love to tell stories of small farms on coffee. I love to coffee hunt. I love to show these amazing coffees when I travel, when I'm doing cuppings around the world. So the pandemic has made me think, why only Paraná and São Paulo? As a Brazilian coffee ambassador, that there's much more that I can show. So I'm expanding now to a more, vast presence of ours, helping other people, not only where we are. There are so many people that need to be promoted. I don't like to see when I go to a cafe in a country and I see they have this coffee. I go to the next cafe, they have the same farm. We have in Brazil 300,000 coffee farms, and how many farms there are in the world. So I would love to hear more stories of more people. So the more I can promote, the more I will work for it.
Oh, that's excellent. Okay, thank you. Good. And KARL, now we've heard about events and getting things happening. What more can we do to create awareness for the smaller farmer?
We being who?
Okay, us. Okay, small farmer, or what do you think? Let me see. How can I say that better? You're already exporting coffee, and is there any other way, or how can we expand on awareness for the smaller farmer to the consumer? What do you think?
Well, I think preparing and offering as much information as we can down the supply chain. I mean, from the origin country, all we can do is offer as much information and real context as we can to the next link in our supply chain. Try to motivate our supply chains to transmit this information and these realities that we are seeing on the ground in our own communities up to the consumer level, and try to select supply chains and work with individuals that share these values that we have in order to access the end consumer, who, like I mentioned, is the one that's making the real decisions here. And the word transparency comes up that I use quite often. And I think this is quite valuable and important, but only in the case that there's proper context given to really understand with benchmarks and metrics to be able to interpret the numbers being thrown around, to be able to really understand the reality based on numbers that cannot be manipulated, rather than buzzwords and verbiage that can kind of be used to create any kind of message.
Okay, great, thank you, that's great. Ezequiel, ahora la misma pregunta, ¿eh? Por ejemplo, para decir, ¿qué crees que pueden pasar? Que deben ser los productores pequeños para despertar el interés y tener una oportunidad de negociar en este segmento de cafés especiales. Y deben ser los productores.
Una de las cosas que pienso que hay que hacer es a veces cambiar la actitud, de querer seguir manteniendo tal vez una misma variedad o un mismo proceso, y otros pequeños.
Okay, a little bit broken up there, but basically the idea is like what Ezekiel's saying is that it's necessary for some of the farmers to upgrade the quality of their farms. That would mean changing their attitude towards traditional farming practices and processing practices. And of course, I've seen that lots too. I remember working with one fellow, for instance, and he was 70 years old, all his life working on a coffee farm, and we talked about pruning, and he says, well, what's that? I never pruned a coffee plant in my life. He was 70 years old. So that kind of thing, helping people understand the newer ways of coffee farming is always much better. ¿Qué más puede decir, Quierito, entonces, ayudando en este sector?
Bueno, también algo que se puede hacer, o que podemos hacer los productores pequeños y necesitamos hacer, es algunas, tal vez, alianzas con personas que nos ayuden a promover el producto, porque no siempre los productores pequeños tienen la posibilidad de ofrecer la calidad o el buen café que tienen. Entonces se necesita unirse o conseguir alianzas con empresas o con personas como ustedes que hagan algún tipo de promoción para que las muestras, por ejemplo, o parte del café que muchos productores pequeños aquí en Panamá producen, lleguen hasta los tostadores o a los consumidores finales y prueben el excelente café que se puede producir o que puede producir un productor pequeño.
Okay, muy bien, gracias. Entonces, what he's saying basically here is that the smaller producers don't have the same financial advantage as other larger farmers or producers or people a long time in the company. They need to make alliances, perhaps like as mentioned earlier, direct trading, this kind of thing, making connections with buyers directly, or unite even with smaller farmers like PERPETUE was mentioning about the co-ops and alliances. That's easier said than done in this part of the world because some of these cooperatives don't really cooperate. Sometimes there can be problems in that area, trust issues. But the idea of, we just can't do it alone, is what Ezekiel's saying. So it's necessary to make alliances, perhaps with buyers, direct trading right off the bat, and that would really be a big help. Okay, and so, Ezequiel, la última pregunta, entonces, ¿por qué deberían los compradores de café y tostadores, como tenemos por ejemplo en el otro panel, por qué deben comprar el café de productores pequeños o comprar café tuyo? ¿Qué puede decir?
Bueno, porque el esfuerzo de los productores pequeños a veces es difícil reconocerlo. Y por eso es la principal razón por la que pienso que a los productores pequeños se les debe comprar el café. Principalmente el esfuerzo de un productor pequeño es muy grande, muy alto, y debe tener una recompensa. Y estarían muy agradecidos los productores pequeños de que se dé a conocer su producto y que alguien se interese en comprarlo.
Okay, so here's one reason that Ezequiel's mentioning that there's so many smaller producers work so hard for an excellent product. They really do have wonderful coffees, and you know, it's worth trying. You know, just see what these people have to offer because they work so hard on their farms to try to earn a living. So, okay, Ezequiel, ¿qué más puede decirnos sobre el asunto en este tema? Perdón.
Sí, también es triste que muchos productores pequeños también, por no poder ofrecer productos, quedan en manos a veces de personas o de empresas que abusan tal vez de los precios y de las necesidades económicas. Eso pienso que también sería muy bueno que clientes se interesaran en comprar el café de productores así, productores que no son grandes y que necesitan mucha ayuda.
Okay, so here's another point that's very true is some farmers are unfortunately taken advantage of in difficult economic situations when they get abused economically by buyers or intermediaries or even larger companies, and so they get offered or paid very low prices. And so to evade that, I mean, they want to upgrade their coffee, do some better sales. So what the farmers are asking is a good price for a good coffee, basically is it. ¿Y qué otro punto tiene Philip sobre esto? De calidad de café, ¿qué puedes decir?
Bueno, en cuanto a la calidad, de hecho, por ejemplo, aquí en Panamá hay muchos productores pequeños con muy buena calidad, con muy buenas variedades, que cuando se prueban los cafés de esos productores, muchos clientes quedan asombrados de tal vez no saber que tenían tan buenas semillas o tan buenas calidades en su finca. Recompensar el duro trabajo y la buena calidad que se puede producir.
Okay, we kind of lost you there, but I like the idea of what you're saying is that the quality of the coffees are very good in their area. There's some wonderful geishas that the smaller farmers have. Geishas, pacamaras, and catuais, things of that nature. Also others, but we also do a lot of different type of processing. ¿Qué otra clase de procesos hacen estas personas?
Bueno, aquí en Panamá se hace mucho proceso lavado, pero también últimamente mucho natural, honey, y se está probando también con muchas fermentaciones ahora para poder ofrecer un mercado diferente que también se interesa en alguna fermentación distinta. Entonces también ya se está probando mucho hacer geisha o pacamara con alguna fermentación sin oxígeno, con oxígeno, de diferentes formas para poder ofrecer el producto un poco mejor.
Muy bien, muchas gracias. Entonces, so he's making the different styles of even processing there. They're geishas, pacamaras, like I mentioned earlier, but they could do wash, they can do honeys, they can do naturals, and even doing anaerobics or different types of processing with fermentations. Okay, so a lot of variety in smaller farmers, and I'm sure that's true everywhere. So let's go back here, and so Edgard, a little bit of promotion for Capricornio coffees. What can we do for?
Well, I think I ask people to continue exploring Brazil, continue enjoying their cups of specialty coffee coming from these small farms who need so much support. People can contact us for samples of these naturals, honeys, the fully washed coffees, and also the ones with special preparations that we do. We will be glad to show you, how amazing these coffees are. I also ask people to pray for Brazil and for all my other deer producing countries. Coffee farmers are very simple people, very humble, and every year they have a different problem. One year is climate change, one year is drought, the other one is too much rain during harvest, one year is low prices, and now we have this pandemic, that has become a nightmare, So pray for us all. I think we will also pray for all our friends, in the world. And we also have been going through very, intense, severe political instability, and this will also contribute for making this year even more difficult. So I think we have to work together, and but we coffee people here in Brazil, and I think all over the world, we continue to have hope.
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much for that. And KARL, here's a chance to explain a bit how great is Cedro Alto. Why buy coffee from Cedro Alto? Oh, are you okay with that? KARL, maybe why should? Did you get my question?
Apology. Got you there.
Okay.
So let's see. I wouldn't say everyone should buy coffee from Cedro Alto, as strange as that sounds. I'd like to change this into more of an if-then kind of equation. If you value complete price transparency and specific context from the farm gate to the roaster door, if you're interested in working with an organization that exists to meet the needs of producers, not use producers to meet their own needs, and if you're interested in supporting a model that prioritizes producer stability, empowerment, and independence, then Cedro Alto may be able to add value to your organization, and we'd welcome the ability to try. That's what I've got. If those things are interesting, then here we are.
Great answer. Thank you so much. Okay, and so last word go to Queen P. So why should green bean buyers and roasters buy from you, from your company?
Okay, so we should buy green beans from small farmer, or me, I should buy the green beans because it's a good way to establish and strengthen the relationship between coffee producers and buyers by connecting them. So this allows them to negotiate price directly, talk about quality expectations, and have shared understanding. So when they having conversation and when they go direct to buyers, they see and they recognize the hard working of the coffee producers. So for example, there are some companies buy direct to farmers like Equita. We have also Sisters Coffee. We have Correctivo and Question Coffee, and there are many. So who buy direct to the small farmers. So for example, maybe Question Coffee as company who buy direct from farmers is provide the retail market to the farmers and promote coffee consumption. So this is the good key of buying coffee, green beans to the roasters from farmers. And this Question Coffee also promote coffee consumption through education customers about specialty coffee. Normally, they do training on hotels, like 5-star hotels, like small coffee shops, like we do the masterclass. So all this, that's why they buy the green from buyers. So it means, and they teach and discuss about quality of expectation directly with cooperatives managers.
Great, excellent. Okay, thank you very much. So now we're going to continue the other part of the program with the second panel. Okay, so thank you all for your excellent participation, and you really helped a lot in our event. Thank you all.
Thank you,
My
Damien.
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. You know, we're running so long because there's so much valuable insights being shared. There's also a lot of questions coming in, you know, from the audience. Before just moving to the next panel, maybe we can just address like one or two of them. We'll try to just get through it a little quickly to respect the time of the next panel. One question I see is from Chisato Kobayashi. They're developing a blockchain-based solution. It's encouraging to hear from Perpetue that people are trying new channels like Alibaba. Do you think farmers are willing to try something new like, you know, blockchain or new channels like that? And what's the best way to reach them, the farmers, to work with them? Anyone can address that?
During this time of COVID-19 and lockdown, you know, everything was closed. There is no transport, airport was closed. So there is no way of selling their coffee or their products. So if we will have, or we will initiate to have more platform like Alibaba, the coffee producers, it will be like a great job for them to sell their coffee. And it will be easy for each and everyone to buy directly without putting the money of transportation, of shipping, and so it will be easy for them. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else want to add anything to that? Carl?
Yeah, I think if someone is in a desperate situation, they'll try absolutely anything to improve that situation. But I think great care needs to be taken in suggesting these kind of fixes to producers to ensure that these are things that are really going to be solutions from them and not just get them tied up in something that they're not set up to be able to handle. Just something that I think that should be kept in mind, because if you're really hurting and struggling to put food on the table, you do anything.
Yeah, interesting. And then we need to have the empathy for that producer to know, will this channel or will this new approach actually be something they can do? Do they have the, you know, do they have a smartphone if it's a blockchain app or something? So understanding that is a big part, and it varies from region to region, that's for sure. Thanks. Just checking if there's any other questions. Actually, this is for you as well, Carl. So this will be the last question, I guess. From Luis Velez. How is FNC supporting growers right now?
And he probably will know better than me. You're closer to them over there in Chapinero Alto. I don't know exactly all the programs that they have going on. They're so big and doing so many things. But what I do think they're doing that is quite positive at the moment is keeping the base price. And for those who don't know, the FNC and the co-ops that are affiliated with the FNC have a purchase guarantee. They'll receive all the coffee, no matter what, at the base price that they set. So effectively, there's a very hard price floor in Colombia. The FNC sets that, and it's generally you know, the physical Colombia commodity grade price minus a small amount for cost, and it's not that much. They're at like over 80% of the average physical FOB price for Colombian coffee right now. So it's highly unlikely that farmers are going to be selling for much less than that. So this is an incredible benefit they have, as well as the forward contracts. They're calling them futuros, but they're actually forward. It's a commitment to hand over coffee at a later date for today's price, allowing farmers to essentially lock in a price that they think is good to be able to ensure that they're going to sell for a profit no matter what at a later date. So I think those are quite valuable. And I'm sure they're doing a lot of other stuff. Like they're looking at a mechanical harvesting, like these, it's like a motorized stick that like shakes the tree. And I mean, they're pilot projects, but they're always in investing and investigating different alternatives. That's what I've got.
Yeah. That's great. It's good to hear about the forward contracts. Helps to hedge some of that, currency exchange risk. So that's great. Thanks for sharing that. And with this, I think we're good to now move on to the next panel. You guys must be really, really tired. You guys were grilled. Really appreciate your insights from the producer side of things. So with this, we will move on to the final panel, which is, now that we've looked at the producer side of the supply chain, we're now going to move to the consumer side. And this panel is titled, How Can Global Consumer Markets Bounce Back After COVID-19? And let's just take a moment and ensure we have everyone here. So Michael, I see you. Blake, I see you as well. Who else is there? Do I see?
Cole's here.
Oh, Cole. Hey, Cole, how you doing?
Hi.
I'm also here.
Hey, Rodrigo. How are you?
Guys. Very good.
All right, and Michael. Do we see Michael? Yep, he's there. All right. Okay. Everyone, I can see you guys. Your audio is good. We're missing one though. Who are we missing? Marty.
Hey, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Is that Marty?
Yes.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah, we got you. All right. Thanks everyone for making it. I know it's a different time for everyone in the world. Some of you guys haven't slept. Some of you guys woke up really early, so appreciate you being here. I'm going to really quickly introduce everyone and then just let you guys share your insights. So firstly, we have Michael UHLIG, currently in Spain. Previously, Michael ran Barú Black Mountain Farm in Panama, which I visited and I was very impressed with what they're doing there. Then he moved to Spain and founded the Origen coffee roasters in 2012. So it's great that you have the perspective of the producer and now the consumer for the past decade almost. The Origen is one of Spain's first specialty coffee micro roasters, and they've won awards for Spain's best espresso, and they've won barista championships. So it's great to have you. You'll give us a great insight into the pulse of the consumer markets in Europe. We also have Marty Pollock. He's been working in China in coffee since 2008. Hey, Marty. I've had the pleasure of working with you on grading some coffee, and I've seen you in action, so I know you're the wizard. He's the managing partner of Torch Coffee in China. They do they're a wholesale roastery, cafe, and a training lab in Yunnan, China. He's a Q grader instructor, so he's trained a lot of people in the industry. He's an educator and a leader, and he does that throughout Asia and the Middle East. So again, really excited to have your perspective on Asia and Middle East. Next, we got Rodrigo. He's got over 10 years of specialty coffee experience in the industry on, again, both the production side at Origen with Devoción Colombia, as well on the marketing side with Devoción USA. He also looks after some of the sister brands of Devoción like Cafe Veneto. So again, it's really great to have that dual perspective that you can provide today. Thanks, Rodrigo. Cole Cole is from Toronto, from Calgary in Canada. So he's my neighbor. Wave at you out the window. He's been in specialty coffee for 10 years. And right now he's the director of coffee at Rosso Coffee Roasters, as well as their newly formed sister company, Forward Specialty Green Coffee Importers. He's also the 2018 and 2019 Canadian National Barista Champion. Go Cole. He also represented Canada on the world stage and was in the top 5 both times. So thanks for being here, Cole. Last but not least, we have Blake. Blake is here from Australia. It's 4 a.m. in the morning, so hats off to you for joining us. Blake's got over 18 years in specialty coffee and hospitality. Right now he heads up St. Ali in New South Wales, Australia. And previously he's held many roles in the industry, including owning and operating his own roastery and cafe in Sydney's Circular Quay. So with that, thank you everyone for being here. And let's dive into the questions. So obviously, you know, we've heard from the consumers on the challenges they've faced. Now we want to hear on the, you know, consuming side. So let's get started with Michael. What are the challenges that have been brought on by COVID-19?
Hi, everyone. So do you hear me well?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, great. So hi, everyone. Saludos a Kielito as well. Saludos a Panama, aquí desde España. So yeah, Spain is a tourist country, right? So especially also where we live right at on the Mediterranean Sea. Roast our coffee about in a straight line about 200 meters away from the sea. We're in a tourist area, and that's completely stalled, completely died down, of course, due to COVID-19. We also live in an area, actually, in fact, our town is the largest Scandinavian community outside of Scandinavia. So we have a lot of Norwegians usually here living, usually during the winter season in Scandinavia. And many of them have gone back. Hotels have shut down, and the whole gastro sector has shut down. So in our case, we have 3 coffee shops plus the roastery. So of course, we from one day to the next had to shut down our coffee shops. Our people had to stay at home. Our customers, of course, shut down their coffee shops, so our roastery customers as well. So it was quite a scene. The first day, I was quite shocked, and kind of well, had to kind of go with the flow. Didn't really know what to expect, where it all was going to go. But that kind of was the initial situation. Now we're into Spain has created different phases, I think similar to other countries, where in these different phases you can start to open up companies, businesses, parks start opening up again. In our case, we just 2 weeks ago entered in phase 1, which meant we could open our terraces again at 50% of seating availability on the terraces. And okay, it's been going all right. Our coffee shops are doing well. Customers are coming back, and I mean, people have been 2 months at home. You can't blame them. They're wanting to go out on the streets again. Spanish culture, anyway, is a very lively culture, a very gastro-oriented culture, and we kind of count on that, right? And the next step will be to see what happens with the tourism. That, of course, this year will probably come back very slowly. We've been hearing France, Italy, Spain, and Portugal want to create a certain agreement to enhance tourism between these countries. But it definitely has been a shocker. We have been at about 10% for 2 months, at about 10% of our usual turnover, and about 90% of our personnel staying at home. So that was the situation, I guess, pretty much similar to to all over the world.
Yeah, no, it's really terrible to hear. I mean, you're right, smack in the middle of tourist central in Barcelona, right? So no travel means no customers. So that's sad to hear, but at least, you know, things are easing up. I think, you know, uh, I think, you know, as things slowly ease up and, you know, hopefully the numbers decline, you know, business picks up, and, you know, we're going to go into the solutions and innovations because everyone here has been innovating, and we'll get to that shortly. So thanks for that, Michael. Next, you know, can we move on to Marty? I don't know if Marty's.
Yeah. Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Hey. So yeah, tell us about China.
So
everyone's going to
so
be wanting to hear from you.
we started a little before all of you, and I was actually in the airport flying to Kuwait when I got a message from a guy coming from India saying that the embassy rejected his visa because he said there was some health issues. So we were pretty surprised. We didn't know anything was happening because China's huge and Wuhan is really far away from us. But the week later when I came back, everything was closed. And China doesn't play around. They closed absolutely everything. Our roastery is about a 15-minute drive from our cafe, and the road was blocked. We couldn't get there. All restaurants were closed. We tried to open anyway because we thought, this isn't a big deal. It's far away from us. But within 20 minutes, the health department was there and closed our cafe and put signs on all the restaurants in town. And we're in a small village in a producing area or small town that said, if anybody sees anyone dining in, call this number and report them. Everything was completely closed. In many cities, only one representative from a household could go out every 2 days just to buy needed supplies. But the only place you could go is grocery stores because everything else was closed. And so that really allowed China to move through the pandemic very, very quickly because there was such a firm response. And so our cafe was decimated during February and March, and roastery was the same because all of our cafe clients were closed, and as well our education because no one could travel. And so a lot of people during that time started talking about going online, doing online education, online this and that, and making some fundamental changes to their business platform. But we didn't. We got together as a team and said, let's see, we don't think this will last forever. And rather than trying to diversify into something that we don't have any real competency in, let's just kind of reinforce systems that we have now and do some internal training and wait and see how long this takes. And for us, we were fortunate in that really within 2 months, things were back to a relative normal. And now it's totally back to normal. I'm actually traveling outside of our city right now and in a hotel, and probably 20% of people are wearing masks, but everything else is open. I was at 2 cafes today and busy and active, and things have basically returned back to normal in a pretty short time. So yeah, the scariness was not knowing if this day would come and wondering if we'd make it through. But now that we're on the other side of it, it seems, that the trajectory is going to continue in the right direction.
Yeah, no, I remember meeting you. I think it was end of Jan, early Feb, and you were.
Yeah, it was like
Dubai
a day before I went back.
China. Yeah, and that's when coronavirus was starting to hit the headlines, and we were just like, we don't know what's happening. And even I wasn't home, so I was supposed to fly back, and everything was just a mess. So, yeah, no, I guess you guys have been really strict on your end in terms of lockdowns in China, and it seems like you guys came out of it pretty fast. So, thanks for sharing your story. Rodrigo, can we?
How you
Hear
doing?
from you. What are the challenges? I know you're going to have a slightly different angle because
Right.
you're still in Colombia, even though Devoción has presence in U.S. as well. So please share with us what are the challenges.
Sure. I guess I have three different angles to share from briefly. There's the two sales marketing sides, one in US, one in Colombia, and then there's one. I have close contact with farmers, so I kind of feel like it's sometimes necessary to give like a little bit of their point of view as well. In terms of New York, obviously, we have 4 shops there, 2 in Brooklyn and 2 in Manhattan. Obviously, New York got decimated. At one point, it was the world leader in cases of corona and deaths, and it hit us super hard. That's something that foot traffic in New York is something that, unless your e-commerce has been going for years and you've just invested super heavily into it, you're not going to be able to make up that ground that you lost with the loss of foot traffic. So that the loss of retail hit really hard in New York. Obviously, e-commerce went up. In Colombia, we don't have a physical coffee shop here at this point. We do have a lot of wholesale clients. So our business model here is mostly wholesale. Credit to the Colombian government and the government and the mayor here in Bogota for shutting down rapidly, for having among the Latin American countries, it's one of the best responses to the virus. We've been on quarantine for months now. And, this quarantine started when there was like a couple hundred cases in the country. So obviously the problem with that is no foot traffic, sales decreasing catastrophically for us. E-commerce, which is a problem in and of itself in Colombia because it's the country in Latin America that is most averse to using their credit card online. E-commerce is not a great realm to try and be in pre-COVID, but COVID has changed those patterns a lot. We've experienced 15 times the amount of sales. This month we hit 15 times what we were doing at the beginning of the year. So that's still not even going to scratch what the loss of wholesale sales were that took place. But later I'll probably go into a little bit more detail about that. But yeah, it's definitely a transitional period for Colombia to more of an e-commerce model. And as far as farms, I've spoken to a few farmers, like 4 farmers since, who are friends of mine since the pandemic started. And, their problems vary from region to region. Someone who's in Risaralda has different issues than someone who's in Huila or Cundinamarca as a producer. But depending on mayoral responses, there's places where nobody can enter the towns. There's places where you have to have special permits to enter and leave. It's been really hard to collect coffee. It's been, they've had to have family members help out with that side of the process. The good thing, as I believe KARL was saying earlier, is there is a price floor the FNC sets that, they have to buy the coffee from the farmer. So that hit hasn't been felt as much as the demand has fallen. But if this goes on much longer, they will see more consequences on that end. And as it stands, the FNC based price a lot of times doesn't even cover costs for a lot of farmers. So some people put the estimate of what you have to sell a carga de café, which is 125 kilos for, at 1.5 million pesos, and that's usually far above what the FNC based price is. So those are institutional problems, and COVID has just exacerbated them.
It's interesting to see how the impact on New York is then forced internal operations in Colombia to ramp up and maybe adopt more e-commerce, and maybe this is kind of like a shot in the arm that Colombia needed in its emerging coffee consuming market.
Exactly.
So some good insights. Thanks, Rodrigo. Next, come to my countryman, Cole. How are you doing? And tell us, what are the challenges that have been brought on?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Abbas. So to give some background, I'm based in Calgary, so Western Canada. We're a city of about 1.2, 1.3 million people. I have two companies that I run. One is Rosso Coffee Roasters. We're a wholesale and retail operating roastery. We have 7 cafes in the city. 4 of them have been able to maintain operations throughout COVID. Just doing takeaway service and like very, very high protocols in terms of cleaning and procedures and the safety glass and the masks and gloves, all that sort of stuff. And we've seen maybe 15% of our normal sales through those 4 cafes. 3 of the 3 that are closed are potentially never going to reopen. They have been a very different circumstance, very challenging. One's in a convention center that's now an overflow homeless shelter, and 2 are just, one's in a museum, one's in a not very busy location to begin with. Our wholesale business has essentially disappeared. We lost 95% revenue in wholesale essentially overnight. But similar to what Rodrigo just said, our online sales have skyrocketed. In a weird way, I think this is going to be a renaissance period for specialty coffee if we can play our cards right. What we've done here is try to see light in the darkness. We have tried to engage and connect with every single client that has ordered online. Hey, can I help you with brewing recipes? Hey, can I tell you more about this coffee? Hey, can I talk to you about anything? Engage with me. I'm sitting here, I'm on my laptop, I'm not going anywhere. I'd really like to help. And we've seen a huge amount of retention in online orders and secondary, third, fourth, fifth orders. We've used this as a time to create allies. We have a local marketplace that we've put online with friends from other businesses and local vendors here in Calgary. So trying to support one another, because I think it's really, above all else, it's a time to show up for one another and provide that support.
Yeah, thanks, Cole. Yeah, I think in Canada, we're fortunate. E-commerce is pretty well established and adopted. So, we're fortunate that we had those channels and those consumer behaviors in place. People, putting a credit card in a computer is like not an issue anymore. So it's good you've taken advantage of that. And I've been following your content, so you guys are doing a great job for sure.
Sweet. Thanks.
So Blake, tell me how things are down under. How's the situation there?
Morning, guys. We had a really pretty unique situation because we were actually gearing up for mice and also the World Barista Champs that were coming in May. So we were going full steam with that. We're one of the premier partners for that. So we're putting a lot of focus on that. And that's now gone. But in terms of what happened with our consumers, we were quite a large specialty wholesale coffee roaster. We supply some of the kind of like franchise groups as well who specialize in specialty coffee in some of our large format shopping malls. So their operation completely shut down. And a lot of the cafes did too, because what we did here was lockdown was pretty quick. And the only thing that could really operate was suburban cafe partners. And also our kind of HQ mothership in South Melbourne, that completely shut down. So it was really confusing on the weekend. There was a lot of mixed messagings from the government. And then on the Monday, there were new measures put in place where you could go out, get takeaway coffee, get your essentials. So that kind of saved our bacon a little bit. And we actually saw an uptake in volume in suburban cafes because that was the only place you could go to. People couldn't go to the pub, people couldn't go to a restaurant, you couldn't dine in. And everyone was working from home as well. And again, like all the other guys have said, our online sales skyrocketed with home brew kits across all platforms of roast as well, filter espresso, our apparel as well went through the roof. mugs, those kind of things. But we still had to lay off probably about, it was looking like we were going to have to lay off probably about 85% of our staff, particularly in the roastery. Yeah, so as we say in Australia, it's looking like a shit sandwich pretty much. But then Salvatore Malatesta, who's our CEO and kind of spiritual leader, he has a lot of amazing connections here in Australia, and he connected with some guys called Hydrochem, and we actually started producing sanitizer in our roastery. So we did a complete flip of our roastery, or maybe we're using one of our Probat roasters just to get enough through of our single origins. And of course, our single origin program was pretty good. It rotates about every 6 to 8 weeks. That was completely kind of locked down. We just sold out of what stock we had. And then we had another roaster just doing our house blends. And then we got our guys, be them baristas, packaging guys, accounts people who would be on the phone, started bottling sanitizer. So it kind of looked like a scene from Breaking Bad. And that was just amazing. Like the turnaround we made, it was to WHO standards, about 70 to 80% ethanol. So the environment in the roastery changed from being a pretty, kind of safe work environment to now we have ethanol around. And we started selling sanitizer because in Australia, us being on an island, so dependent on products from China, we had to go back and do some Australian ingenuity, and we sold a lot of sanitizer. I'm not sure about the massive volumes. Like people would be driving around all day just trying to find sanitizer, wipes and masks and chemists. So through our online channel, that went really well. We were having some slight issues with freight because it's a flammable product. So freight charges were high, more packaging. But yeah, that basically saved our butts. And we're still producing now. And now that's also led to us doing a special kind of program where if you buy a certain amount of sanitizer, we'll donate the equivalent cases to any charity of your choice. So in particular, we're thinking about now, we have sanitizer in stock throughout the country, so the hospitals are going pretty well, but now it's about the charities, so like Vinnie's, Red Cross Australia, all those kind of guys to help more people who are in need who don't actually have access or funding to be able to purchase the sanitizer. So from there now, we're getting a lot of the cafes reopening. So we're starting to ramp up and going back to roasting coffee and getting out and seeing our customers and helping them with, they have debts to us, but we're not going to go around and knock on their doors asking for money. We actually just help them out. And if they're reopening, we replace this stock that they had pre-COVID that now, wouldn't taste very good. And we replenish their stock and get them up and going again.
Yeah, thanks. It sounds like you guys have innovated and, really looked outside the box. I've heard of, a few companies producing sanitizer and, even like face masks and just kind of completely changing their business model. So hats off that you're able to do that. I heard some common themes, like it seems like in Spain and in Australia, things are slowly, easing up, starting to open. In China, they're a bit ahead of Europe, and Australia as well. E-commerce is a trend. You guys are switching to the digital channels and taking advantage of, the more time that's being spent and, just not being able to go into a cafe and buy something. So it's good to hear that. Are there any other kind of ways that these challenges are being met? And I'll just kind of pose as an open question. Is there any other way that you guys are trying to change your business models or innovating in any other way in addition to what has already been shared? And I'll make this an open question to anyone.
Well, as far as what's going on over here, Colombia obviously has a very unique, commerce in that in that it's averse to any sort of using your credit card online. So, what we've had to do is put aside a much larger share our budget into e-commerce, into ads, paying more direct attention to consumer habits, more attention to better targeting, putting a lot more money onto exactly who our audience is, and not just necessarily running ads to run ads. Knowing which metrics are really important to us, because there's a lot of different KPIs that you can use. I would say customer acquisition cost for us has been huge, like seeing how much money we in this is US, Colombia. This is something we pay attention to a lot, and a lot of other companies down here have been paying attention to. We have a specific problem too, which is this is a coffee producing country. Everybody's got an uncle or a family member, or a friend who has a coffee farm, essentially. So people think, who knows more about coffee than us? And there's been a little bit of a pushback sometimes when we try to use kind of third wave language or brewing techniques or methods. It's sort of like, wait, why somebody from outside kind of like telling me that about coffee? And there's points on both sides, because Colombians, obviously there's a lot of stuff Colombians know about coffee that maybe people in non-producing countries don't know, and that's huge. But it's important here to have education be a part of your sales approach to the audience. Innovative when it comes to branding, not just doing what everybody else does, using different color schemes, using different language, being agile. Using a lot of influencers, micro influencers, I guess it's normal everywhere, using platforms like Rappi, Amazon, Mercado Libre. There's there's probably more in the end, but like, wholesale clients that aren't open on Rappi, seeing how you can get new products to them and how they can sell it and get your sales up. Direct sales through WhatsApp, which is huge here. This is kind of something that that's popped up since COVID, is WhatsApp flyers with how to buy and transfer money directly through a bank, Bancolombia or whichever bank. And that's a little bit of innovation that's taking place. And I mean, as far as the farmers, they still have the exact same problems. They need more training, they need more equipment. They need, if they get equipment, it needs to be super helpful for them. You see a lot of abandoned labs all across the country. There needs to be more stability and security. There's a lot of conflict action taking place during COVID, and a lot of assassination of environmental leaders, which has been disappointing. Huge uptick in that this year. And one thing that we like to do is, we travel to almost every farm that we buy coffee from, especially if it's a limited edition, and we brew a lot of times, as much as possible, the farmer's final product on the farm for them, using a V60 or some sort of method that we deem that's good, and using our brew standards. And a lot of farmers tell us, not only, in some cases it's the first time anyone's ever visited my farm, a private buyer, but also this is the first time I've tried my coffee. This is the first time I've seen a bag of my own coffee. And, there's higher level producers that know exactly what's going on, and they're not part of necessarily this discussion I'm having now. They're very well stocked and they have roasters and labs on the farm. But for the more humble farmers, they say like, wow, this is crazy. This tastes different than what I think coffee tastes like. I think it's kind of like,
yeah, no, it's I've noticed that you guys have tried so many different things just through like your content and just the way you're communicating, and like WhatsApp, for example. That's incredible. And it's like, I guess it's all about experimenting with these new channels and approaches for sales, marketing, and see what sticks, right? Because there's also a lot of people you're competing against. Like, everyone's going online, everyone's trying to use these channels. So how can you really separate from the next roaster down the road? So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and a big one for us, in Australia, was that we had to totally change our kind of cafe models as well to be more of like the kind of neighborhood store. And a lot of the restaurants and cafes were doing that, where they do specialty kind of take-home packs, your COVID packs, where they'd get the chefs still employed to make all these amazing meals that you could only usually get in the cafe. Like some of our signature dishes out of our South Melbourne cafe, you could get at the general store, as well as coffee. So we moved our KB90 from the back of the cafe right up to the front of the garage door. You could drive through, you didn't even have to get out of your car. And then all our wholesale customers, or if you bought a certain purchase online, you get a little bottle of sanitizer. We call it a pocket rocket because it fits in your pocket. And they were basically the kind of things that we did. And yeah, like Rodrigo said, just pumping on Instagram. It's huge here in Australia. WhatsApp slowly starting to come through, and just getting it out that way. And a lot of it too, we actually picked up a few wholesale customers as well during this time, because their volumes are increasing, but then they weren't getting support from their roasting partner, whereas we could come in and support. Like, it was kind of bad, like picking up accounts during such a world global pandemic, but in the end, it's helping them to improve their business even more, so they could actually survive.
Yeah, I like the whole, like, hey, provide a meal and recreate that sort of experience in your home. Right, as a consumer, you can't go and get your favorite sandwich and the coffee that you're used to getting, and here's 100%. The ingredients, or here's even a prepared food.
And also here too in Australia, we didn't have any government support in terms of payouts for overseas workers, which makes up like 80% of our hospitality industry here. And also casual workers as well. And we all know that in hospitality, it's a very casual employee environment, travelers, those kind of things. And those guys were basically left here, locked here in Australia. Wow. They couldn't travel. So a lot of the hospitality businesses and ourselves put our minds together, and we're helping out with charities. And it was like feed a mate kind of charity, where you could actually provide a meal for them, because they didn't have any money coming in or any government support.
Yeah, so we've actually been fortunate here in Canada. It's sad to hear that in Canada the government's been helping a lot of subsidies, a lot of programs. We're really fortunate here. In every country is completely different. Any other innovations? Any other solutions anyone wants to share? We've heard from a couple of from Blake and also from Rodrigo. Is there anything else? I know you guys already touched on some of the things you guys are doing. Is there anything else, or move on to the next question if we've covered it?
Just shortly, if I may.
Yep.
I mean, it's just you can't, it's such a big scale what happened. It's not really, but it's just everyone doing a little bit, right? What helps. And in our case, for example, Spain has been hit pretty hard. The situation at hospitals was quite crazy. So we just tried to, like, wherever we could, we send, like, coffee equipment and coffee and freshly roasted coffee to different hospitals, which a lot of doctors and nurses wrote back and appreciated. It helped them through the day. And we also created a pack, an online sales, 2 coffees for 19 euros, and off that it was like we call it like pack de sanidad in Spanish, like for our health system here in Spain. Off that double pack of 2 coffees, we donated 4 euros to our health system here in Spain. So people actually, responded to that. In our case, it was similar to, I don't know who mentioned, we did about 10 or 12 times the amount on web sales or online sales, which we usually do. Wow. So we just kind of, tried to, with the weapons or the tools we had, just kind of, did as far as we felt we could do, help out emotionally and with the product we're working with.
Yeah, no, that's great. I wanted to mention, I love your hat, by the way. It's the Origin, We the Origin. It's like the brother to We the Origin. But yeah, no, it's great to hear, like, the first responders, like kind of the people on the front lines. I've seen a lot of roasters, a lot of cafes, kind of running campaigns to really say thank you and providing benefits to them. free coffee or whatever it is. So hats off to everyone who's able to do that. I mean, these guys are working hard, and without them, you know, we'd be much worse off. They're putting themselves at risk. So thanks, guys. Anything else that we've missed? I know we've kind of covered a lot of stuff, which is exciting. You guys are pretty innovative, that's for sure. All right. So I think, you know, got a couple more questions to go. Sorry, Cole, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I was going to throw in a quick comment. I think it's interesting. Our panel, at least from what I've established, everybody has numerous cafe locations. And I think it's interesting. With our second entity, Forward Coffee, and bringing in green coffee and starting to work with some small scale guys here in Canada, a lot of the guys that don't have retail presence are actually just doing record numbers for their businesses. This is a moment that is, you know, if you were just an e-commerce platform, we're the five of us that are sharing with you right now, we're all struggling because we're shut down on retail. We had to let our teams go. We have to pivot our business all together. We're into different avenues altogether, like Blake was saying with sanitizer, which is that's super amazing. Just I think that the level of entrepreneurship and the ability that people are able to change. But I think for some roasters, this is the moment for them to get ahead of the small guy, big guy, and jump into a new bracket and sort of position themselves in a spot in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I come from a tech background, so I've been speaking with a lot of kind of the tech coffee companies out there that are like highly focused online and on tech, and they're seeing an uptick, and they're getting investors reaching out because their numbers are really taking off because of changing consumer behavior. So there's a lot of interest in that space, especially from like the VCs and the tech folks.
Something else we did that we thought was kind of fun and interesting. We were gearing up for to be at MICE and to be in World of Coffee in Poland, and we have a bunch of super high-end coffees, competition coffees, you know, 5, 10, 20 kilos of these amazing lots that are not priced for mere mortal coffee drinkers, but we launched them on our menu. We put up a little reserve menu and put them in 100-gram bags, so they're at least a price point that you can kind of chew off, $10 to $40 Canadian, and that has gone exceptionally well, to the point that I actually think that will be a significant percentage of our business going forward, and it's gonna kind of play into and pad that high-end coffee market, which I think other than a few players globally, it doesn't really exist at the moment. So that's really exciting for me. I'm sitting here roasting some Panama Geisha lots at the moment, and you know, hoping to bring in more of this stuff. So that's a pivot that we've kind of taken, something we had access to but never known how to actually market. We threw it out there because of COVID, and it's stuck and has been a success.
It's awesome. I'm going to be ordering some of those geishas from you, for sure.
Sweet. That's most of why I said it. Most of why I said it, hoping you'd bring some in.
Awesome. That's cool. So look, we had a lot of producers, a lot of farmers here today. What do you want them to know about you and your coffee communities right now? You know, a lot of the times it's like broken telephone. They'll only hear about what's happening with you through intermediaries. So, you know, really quickly, I'd like to hear from everyone. You know, can we start with, we haven't heard from Marty in a while. So Marty, you know, what do you want farmers and producers to know?
So yeah, in where we are, we're at Origin, so we're working with producers every day, and China's a little bit different than I think a lot of producing countries in that it's also a major consuming area. Obviously, per capita, it's not a big consumption, but there's a lot of capitas here. So even with only with about 4 or 5 cups a year, it's still a fairly formidable volume. So the producers that live near us, they've actually been having a great year because China's come back online pretty quickly, but a lot of other coffees are having a hard time getting out of port. People that weren't Chinese roasters that weren't buying Chinese coffee previously are buying some now, just to make up for that month or two of delay in Latin and African coffees getting here. So prices have been high, and there's very little coffee left. Normally this time of year, people are coming and banging down our door trying to sell us coffee, and this year it's really the opposite. We've been scrambling to get enough green to make it through the rest of the year. So for the producers we work with, you know, locally, which is Chinese, Myanmar, and Lao farmers, they're doing great. They're having a better year than the last 3 years for sure. But we also have some small projects in Guatemala, and that's been a disaster. We had a contract for 15 containers that fell through because there was a Chinese grocery that's basically imploding. And so they said we could either pretend to keep the contract and then probably go bankrupt and not pay you, or we can just not pay you now. So trying to communicate that back down the chain has been challenging. So yeah, I mean, I think you're right that there's so much breakdown between consuming and producing countries most of the time, and the more communication that can go back and forth, the better. But like I said, where we are, it's not near as there's not near as big of a gap between the consuming and producing world where I am as where most of these guys are at.
Yeah, no, that's positive. We've heard a lot of doom and gloom earlier, so it's good to hear some positives. Michael, how about yourself? What would you want producers to know about what's happening with the Origin? I know you're pretty well linked with Barú Black Mountain as well, but just for the benefit of other farmers and producers, I'd love to hear from your perspective as well.
Yeah. So Barú Black Mountain, Kilito was, giving his input earlier, is in fact belongs to my father-in-law. All right. And we have a very good relationship, and I've been back and forth. So almost 10 years ago is when we set up the roastery here in Spain. And coming to your question, of course, we work with our own coffee from our plantation, but we have a constant offering of about 11 or 12 single origins. We've been noticing, of course, not in terms of volume, but in terms of type of coffees. We've shifted from our blends, which are our wholesale coffees, mainly, or the coffees that end up in a lot of our customers' coffee shops. So we shifted from those type of coffees, from volume coffees, to a lot more to to single origins, to micro lots, which we have been selling over the internet online. So that's actually gone up for us. So we actually our micro lots, we've been selling them a lot quicker. So these are coffees, all our coffees are specialty coffees, be it for blending or as single origins. But okay, there is a certain, let's say, quality difference in terms of maybe scalp points, if you want to say, naturally, right? So like these are coffees of whatever, 86, 87 points upwards. And these have been selling really, really good via the internet, actually quicker than before. So, I mean, I think that'll actually hold on. So if we gained whatever 300% on online sales, we might go down 20% of that, but that'll actually, I have the feeling that coffee selling online in Spain is here to stay, which means that our single origins, our actually micro lots will increase in volume, as in terms of selling them, and in volume. So I hope that's positive. I would say, keep on doing the good, doing your job to all the producers. Keep on producing, specialty lots, because I think good quality coffee definitely has a future here in Spain. Definitely has. It's been noticeable. It's not that big of an online country, especially coffee not. but that hasn't increased. And I really believe I've spoken to other friends in other countries around Europe, and they had exactly the same situation. They've been selling a lot more single origins, and so I really think that that's, you know, that's something to count on for producers, not to now go for merely volume and you know, try to make your money back through volume, through a lot of volume, but really sticking to the quality.
Yeah, we all hope we can maintain the specialty side of the industry, right, and not resort to commodity, garbage, dirty water coffee that you get in, you know, other parts of the coffee industry. So that's good to hear. And, you know, like you know, maybe producers can reach out, and, you know, if they have questions, or, you know, if they can figure out how to de-risk that, and, you know, maybe even share the risk along the chain, and instead of experimenting on their own and then kind of losing everything. I think there's new business models and new, like, kind of processes that we can introduce into the coffee industry to help the farmer, and then ultimately help ourselves on the consumer side. Thanks, Michael. Rodrigo, you still there? Yes.
I am here, yeah.
Yeah. What would you, I guess you are already telling them because you're there in Colombia. Is there anything else you can share, and you know, at least from Devoción USA's perspective, that would help people who are in a kind of a producing side of things?
Sure. Yeah. So just to explain a little bit, I'm head of content here, which means I do, my purpose on going to farms is to create content. It's not necessarily, I'm not like a Q process or anything like that, but I do travel with the team, including Salomon Vinograd, who is our main buyer and sustainability expert. He tells me a lot of things when I go to these farms that give me kind of like insights on what he sees, because, you know, if I go once a month, he goes 4 times a month to these farms. Colombia's like unique problems make this difficult, because, you know, we're dealing with a lot of farmers. We go to their farms, they may not have electricity, they may not have running water. We're going to parts totally destroyed by 65 years of civil war, parts of, you know, central and southern Tolima, or even 4 hours outside of Bogota, like former FARC strongholds, former ELN strongholds. So the unique set of problems is that everything is very artisanal here. There's not great business models a lot of times, or people see coffee as like a 3rd or 4th priority sometimes, or you know, they won't do a lot of processes that would help them, simple processes or types of fertilization, or you know, broca traps to prevent, you know, pest infestation. There's very simple things that could be done that they're not doing. So if I were to say, like, what I want them to know is, and what we try to teach them, you know, brewing coffee on the farm is a good example. You know, making little videos to show what is, sorry, I don't know the phrase in English, but it's factor de rendimiento. It's like the defect percentage of their coffee.
Oh, okay.
Humidity levels, why their factor is what it is, what they could possibly change on the farm. They don't even sometimes know what that means or what it is. A lot of times their processes with fermentation involve, I do one thing before I go, you know, when I'm done for the day, when I wake up in the morning, I do another thing. So that could be a range of 12 to 16 hour, you know, aerobic fermentation. They don't know that though. And so it's a lot of, this just happened to be great. And so because we're not tied to any particular farm, we find these hidden gems, and we try to understand what they were doing and to have them repeat their processes. And there's so many variables. We try to figure out why this turned out so well. And we're consistently we give cupping scores for free to all farmers who send samples to us. So that allows them to say, oh, our humidity is too high, or you know, this one turned out well because that's the batch where we did X, Y, Z. So that feedback is super important for them. And a big thing, one of the biggest things for us in terms of our sustainability program is getting people to have their children want to stay in the farms and not move to Bogotá, Medellin, or other places where, you know, the Colombian urbanization, you know, the agricultural sector in 2012 fell to 6% of the Colombian economy. You know, it used to be a majority. So people really are pivoting away from agriculture and I think it's because they don't see the value. I think what we need to transmit to them is that the specialty market is really a good future. There's a lot of potential there for them. If they're able to repeat their processes, if they're able to understand what a red honey or a natural is, if they can narrow down the scope of what they're doing and do it really well and be known for a flavor profile, they can make a really great return on investment and not just be struggling to break even with FNC based prices.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, you know, the education on, you know, the process that they're doing, there's so many parameters that go into coffee production. I mean, if you just record those different parameters and then see what the output's like, and then, you know, like, hey, if I tweak one thing, let's try that next, and then see if that improves or has an impact. And just kind of some of these basic things would really help. And, you know, people like yourself and Devoción are doing a good job of that. And we got to figure out, how can we scale this up? Like, you know, you can work with one farmer or two farmers or 10 or 20, but how do you reach the 25 million around the world? And, you know, how can we, you know, in line with some of the things that were said earlier, right? How do you use technology and in a way that, you know, a farmer can just take it and start getting value from it? So I think a lot of opportunity. We just got to figure out, you know, the best way to get it out to them.
And have them trust you when you tell them about it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Like, screw you, get lost. Yeah. Who are you? Yeah. So quick time check. I know we were running a little bit late. Does anyone have to go in the next few minutes? You know, try to wrap up soon, but it seems like there's a lot of value. We're also going to be recording this and slicing it up and sharing it. So does anyone have to go in the next 5-10 minutes, or can we take 10 minutes and kind of wrap up? If you have to go, that's fine as well. Everyone's good? All right. So Cole, what do you want producers to know?
That's a great question. I don't know. I think right now, be patient, keep with the relationships you have, and work with them as much as you can. If that requires changing the way the system used to work, like maybe it's not cash up front for that container before it hits the water. Maybe you can offer some sort of terms and break it down over the course of 6 months or whatever the roaster needs to consume that coffee. A couple of guys that I work with. Sorry, I'm pulling the coffee out of my kawa at the moment, so that's a loud noise in the background. A couple of guys I work with have offered coffee on consignments. I had some pre-bookings from earlier in the season, and they had people walk away from other lots. So I see this as an opportunity, not as a time to sit back and fall flat. I think in a crisis like this, there are people that will rise to the occasion, and I think in Canada there's lots of those. So I don't want to keep coffee from moving to Canada, and my issue though is, just like everybody else, I don't have the cash to just throw it at you and get that coffee on the water or moving in any way possible. So I think be patient, be creative, work with the relationships that you have, or seek them out. Now is a time more than ever where we can just help each other out. That's
it's a challenge, because if your wholesale customers, your retail, everyone's kind of spending less money, then obviously you can't take on the risk and still kind of pay the same amounts that you're paying to buy coffee. So that just kind of goes up the chain, right? But having those direct relationships.
I want to challenge you on that. I think we need to pay the same amounts. I don't think now is a time to ask for discounts. I think now is a time to keep true to what we have paid in the past and honor that. I think creative solutions to affording to be able to pay the same prices is what we need. But I don't think we need to discount, because then, my issue here, I'm just passing along to the guys that Rodrigo is going and visiting, and passing along to Queen P in Rwanda, and it's not their issue. it's all of our issue. We all got to stay true, and we got to honor our product for what we believe it's worth. And I don't think we want to discount that like the big box players are right now in the coffee world. And I think if we do start to ask for discounts, we're just going to cheat ourselves and cheat the community, and we're not going to continue to grow. We're going to get lost in the conventional world, and it's at least not where I want to play.
Yeah, and I think like this is kind of one of the reasons for bringing the Jump conference and kind of bringing everyone together is to just get this out in the open, right? There's people that are treating this in kind of a dirty way, and hey, we're not getting paid, so we're not going to pay you. And I mean, there's a lot of dirty practices, but you know, we wanted to kind of share how everyone here is dealing with it, especially on the consumer side, because you guys are still, you know, running your businesses. You know, you may have had a reduction of volume, and you know, you guys have to figure out how to maintain your business and keep running it. So I think what's come out of this is, one, we understand a lot more of what the farmer and the roasters are going through, and that helps us to better work with them and understand their issues, and just kind of have that direct relationship with the farmer to understand how can we really help you. Finally, Blake, you know, do you want to share something with the producers and farmers? If you're still there. Okay, I think we lost Blake. Okay, no worries. So the last question, you know, and this is, you know, we've talked about a lot of doom and gloom, and hopefully this is a positive way to end Jump, is if there was a magic solution other than a vaccine for COVID, what would that solution be? And, you know, be as out there and as creative as you can be with no restrictions. So who would like to tackle that first?
When you say if there was a solution, what exactly are we solving?
Yeah, so this reduction of coffee shops being able to have customers coming in, foot traffic, you know, reduction of revenues. Unfortunately, a lot of that being passed down the chain in a lot of cases. How can we solve this? How can we come together, and what can we do?
My short and fast answer would be keep doing what you're doing. It's going to come back to normal at some point. In Calgary, we just hit phase 1. We have 50% capacity in businesses here. I've got a friend who's a chef at a couple of restaurants, and on Thursday, he was lined up from 1 p.m. all the way till close. He did 300% the revenue he did the same day last year. And, you know, that's a Thursday. It was a rainy Thursday. I don't know what he's done today or on Friday, but it's going to come back, and it's going to come back so fast that we aren't anticipating it. And I think less so of a solution is we just need to be geared up and ready for the resurgence to happen. People want out. People want to be sitting on a patio. They want a cold beer. They want a coffee. They're tired of making it. They learned about it. They did it at home. They made sourdough. You know, now we gotta go back to bakeries and cafes and restaurants, and I think we just have to be prepared. Is my personal opinion.
Good point. It's like you're running the 100-meter dash in the Olympics. As soon as that, you know, trigger is pulled, everyone's going to sprint like Usain Bolt, and everyone's going to want to get out and do the things they love. That's for sure. So a lot of people are not going to be ready to handle that. So I like what you said. That's a great perspective. Thanks, Cole. Anyone else want to add to it?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Cole. We're noticing it already. Now on Monday, we can actually open up our coffee shops indoors as well, not only on the terrace. We've been noticing that. Yeah. We've been noticing it already. Our terraces are full. The people are standing in line as well. And we just need to keep on, you know, innovating. In the gastro business, hygiene always was important, and I think now is more important. So that's kind of maybe, you know, wake up call to not relaxed on hygiene. You know, it's something you need to be on top. We've always made a point of you know, being that type of business that people really can trust. But there's always things to improve in that sense as well. And I also believe people are, you know, wanna get out, wanna come back. Coffee is a social thing. It's not only about, you know, coffee. We know a lot of our customers by their names. They know us by our names. Customers wanted to hug us when they, you know, when we opened up back the terrace, which we couldn't because of obviously because of the situation. So that was nice to see. And then again, I believe in coffee. Coffee has been drunk even during war times, like for soldiers, and it's a product that we're actually quite lucky to be in. It's a product that people, you know, need, if you want to use that word. So I believe in coffee. It'll come back, and you know, just let's keep on doing what we've been doing, as Cole has been saying.
Yeah, I totally agree with Michael as well. Sorry to interrupt the others. And also, big, huge thing that we've learned here is community and people just slowing down. What COVID's done to us in Australia is really kind of gone, okay, we need to slow down. We need to look at the things that are important in terms of what people's values are, community, helping each other out. And when our cafes open, like tomorrow here in Australia, down in Melbourne at St. Ali HQ, the guys are going to get pumped and it's going to be awesome. We've got, you know, tunes cranking, Sal's going to be there front and center, but just embrace people. And also before, it was almost like there was an energy of just everything was so fast paced. There were also a lot of cafe operators who were coming into the business and weren't producing a product that you could pretty much be proud of, or weren't doing coffee justice. And I think what we'll see now is a lot more operators who have survived really look at themselves and go, okay, cool, we don't want to go too crazy with expanding our business, but we want to make sure we have the best cut that we can give to people, because that's really important. And like Michael said, coffee brings people together. Like people are just hanging out to go and have a coffee.
Yeah, for sure. We're on a live stream at 5 a.m. for you, so coffee definitely brings us together. That's
I'm
for
looking
sure.
at my clock, wondering what cafes around me open soon. Hopefully my 2-year-old son doesn't wake up.
Yeah. That's awesome. But I like what you're saying, you know, focus on the quality, right? Don't let that slip. You know, remain sustainable as a business in terms of maintaining your customer relationships. Focus on that quality for sure. Anything you want to add? I think Rodrigo and Marty, anything you guys want to add before we kind of close off?
Sure. I think for businesses, we need to take advantage of, it's a well-documented phenomenon called pent-up demand. You know, obviously after a crisis or a crash, usually there's pent-up demand, and we have to be ready with innovation, with new products. You know, innovating, like trend setting. We don't have to become complacent just because COVID ended. This sort of pivoting and innovation that we're doing might have positive repercussions and reverberations around the industry. We need to take advantage of this time of increased empathy in the consumer, you know, in this stage of new normal that we're in, to shine light on origin processes. Obviously I've been talking so much about origin on the marketing panel, and I'm sorry for that, but it's because I think we need to focus a lot on what's going on farms. You know, somewhere around, I've been told by, you know, experts, like, you know, around 70 to 80, 85% of the work of coffee is done on the farm itself. And that includes, I mean, I'm talking everything from germination to drying and storing, everything in between, keeping track of the farm and everything that entails. That's like, let's just say it's 80% of the work on the farm. Farmers get 10% here, at least get 10% of the profit. That has to change. Are the consumers on the other side of the world, you know, the ones who have the money and buy the coffee, have to have more empathy, or at least know that these problems exist. I think there needs to be more innovation in coffee products. I think, you know, if you think of coffee similar to the way you think of wine, wine has a huge advantage. You open the bottle and you start drinking it. You know, there's definitely some nuances there, and what kind of glass you use and the aeration and etc. But coffee, you open up a bag of coffee and you're a long way away from drinking a good cup of coffee. You know, like, and especially if the coffee's not ground yet, then you have how are you going to grind it? How are you going to prepare it? What method are you going to use? You know, what variables are you going to change? Which ones are you going to keep the same? So, you know, if there was more innovation within coffee, like making products from the cherry itself, or the mucilage, or you know, fermentation. There's so many ways things could go, and I've seen really cool stuff and innovating in the product sense. And as far as farmers, I think if there's some way to guarantee that their coffee could be bought at a fair price and not just at a break-even price, at a good price, and you know, if that means that their quality has to be higher than helping them raise the quality, whatever, that is essential for them and for the future of Colombian you know, coffee production. And we have to be aware of and support associations and cooperative. And I think a big key thing is private buyers buying directly from farmers. I think that's huge.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And what you were saying about kind of ready to drink and other forms of you know, coffee, I think sometimes there's such a big leap from commodity to specialty that you know, the average consumer is just like, I don't even know how to use a, you know, Chemex. Like, I drink a coffee brewed by Cole, you know, over a coffee brewed by myself any day, because a lot of the coffee that I brew sometimes just doesn't turn out great. So for the average person who's just getting started, there is a big barrier, that's for sure. So yeah, I mean, investigating into how we can create a market demand for other products, right? Cold brew and whatever else we can come up with. Did we miss anyone? I think Marty, do you have anything to add? No. Okay, maybe Marty's gone. It's also late for him as well. I think it's 4 a.m. in China, almost 3 or 4 a.m. Alrighty, guys. This was awesome. We've been going for 3.5 hours. I don't know how many coffees you've had. I think I've gone through about 2 cups, but conversation was great. You know, we started with great state of the industry from Karthik, and you know how they're trying to support small farmers, and then Rick gave us that bird's eye view, that macroeconomic kind of moment in time and how we got here, which was super helpful as well. And you know, the panel, the first one, especially from the producer side, shared a lot of the challenges, and then moving to the consumer side. So we've gotten a huge like 360 degree view of the coffee industry. And I think, you know, right now having everyone at the same table today just kind of shows that, look, we're all in this for the same reason. We love the coffee industry. We see that it's a resilient, magical crop, and you know, we want to do what we can to come together and help other people along the chain so that we can together strengthen the coffee industry. So I think this is a really good point in time where we can kick off this conversation. I hope a lot of connections were made today, and I really hope that we can continue this conversation. So at We the Origin, we're planning to have a lot more of these type of conferences and events, knowing that more business now will be done online, keeping in mind, even though we may be over COVID now, there could be future issues. There could be other viruses that pop up, in the future. There could be bioterrorism, other catastrophes can happen. How can we de-risk coffee in the long term, over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? And again, I think a lot of that is now dictated by the consumer behavior, adopting new technologies and new channels. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us, and let's continue this conversation. Thank you, everyone, Rodrigo, Cole, Blake, Marty, for your insights, and everyone who came earlier. from Karthik, Rick, and Damian, as well as Perpetue, Kilito, EDGARD, and also our tech team, Tobias and Misha, for kind of helping us at the beginning. We had some tech issues. We never did this before, but we were able to stream this out across the web. So thanks everyone who kind of helped, make this happen today, and look forward to continuing the conversation. Take care, guys.
Thanks so much.
See you guys.
Thanks, Abbas.
Stay
Thanks
safe.
for putting this together.
Thanks for having
Ciao.
me pose these questions to you. Thank you, guys. Take care. See ya.
Hello. Hey.
Hey, Damien.
Congratulations, Abbas. Man, you just rock. Oh,
This was fun.
you were
Yeah.
awesome. Very
This was
nice,
fun.
everybody.
Oh, this was a team effort. Well done. We're
Well,
still streaming.
You are still streaming, so let's be careful here.
So now it's time to pour myself some more coffee.
Well, I better start making some. I got a siphon here this might use.
That siphon's great.
It is good.
Oh la la.
Hey,
All right, Karthik, you're back.
Very nice presentation. I missed some of it because of my problem. So I'm going to have to review the whole thing once it's out there. Now
Yeah,
that
I think
it's recorded. What's the plan?
this is like the outtakes. We had some issues at the beginning
Well, there's
because
always-
I could see you, like I could see you, but I couldn't hear you, and then eventually I couldn't even see you, and then you just completely disappeared. So,
Well, it was just
yeah.
nuts, and that stressed me out to the limit. Just
yeah, but it's okay. We
it's not really.
Tobias helped a lot. He figured
Yeah.
out the tech, got everything up and running. So,
But I was ready 20 minutes before then. Everything nice. Why
yeah,
did
well, I
that
think
happen?
look, I think that the important thing is we got everyone who was going to add some value to share that. So I don't care if like my laptop broke, but everyone got to share their insights and we kind of came together. So that's kind of what we were going for. I don't care about the production quality. Like it's,
Well,
it's
I
all about the
kinda do.
substance,
I
right?
It would have been kind of
It's the
nice.
substance that matters.
Well, I didn't even get to do my introductory talk, and I worked so hard on that thing.
Yeah, I did the introductory talk and I completely messed it up. I think I missed like a couple people.
Oh, well,
I did the intro and I'm like, oh man, I don't even have the full list of people in front of me. So I think I missed some people.
oh,
And I may have
had
even
a great one.
said that they're from the wrong company that they're from. So
Oh, no.
I wasn't ready
I
for
had
that
a nice
one.
part. I was all excited, and I just cannot believe it. Why did these? And
Hey,
it wasn't
we're-
your guys' fault. It was my computer.
We're still
my
live
computer.
streaming across the
Yeah.
web. So if someone's on
Oh, it's
Instagram
okay.
or YouTube, yeah, I mean, let's keep them. Let's
Yeah.
keep it.
If not, let's just rock.
We're
You know, have some fun.
transparent. It's all about transparency.
Yeah, it's my computer. I got a different program on there that I needed for another type of meeting, and it just messes everything up. But I didn't think it was on. I had it off.
No, I have 6 screens in front of me right now.
6
Yeah.
screens.
Yeah, I got six screens. I don't even want to go through it.
Well, what I really want to do is look it all over once it's recorded. Karthik, I want to see your talk.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
missed most of it because of my problems. I want to study Rick's because there's a lot of stuff there that I just can't figure out.
Mhm.
And re-listen to everybody.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. 100%.
You know, there's so many things there. I think everyone did great. And Tobias, you're awesome. Great
Yeah,
work.
that was great.
Great work. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for the support, man. There's a lot of things that went wrong, but you figured it out. So that was awesome.
You had your kids' running shoes on, that's for sure. Okay.
Awesome.
Everybody was awesome. We had a good crew, eh?
It was great. It was just so diverse, right? I mean, we had someone from every continent on the planet,
Yeah.
from every time zone, every corner of the coffee industry. So, I mean, you couldn't create a more diverse panel for the coffee industry. I don't think you can. This
Not on
was
purpose.
great. Yeah,
No.
this was great. So
Truly
that was
loved
awesome.
it. Yeah, great work, everybody.
All right, so we'll.
So next step, where do we go from here?
Yeah, so we'll. I think there's a lot of kind of paths we can move forward from here. So, there's a lot of questions coming in too. So I'm just trying to go through all of them. Some of them are in social, and there's questions I'm seeing on Facebook and all over the place. So there's a lot of kind of next steps to explore, and just excited to, get back, after we kind of think through everything that went down today and figure out what are the opportunities. And I think there's a lot, right? Changing consumer behavior, just kind of transparency, communication back to the farmer. Like some of these themes that were brought up today, I think we can really help, especially with technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
pretty nice.
All right, I am going to go and have breakfast. It's now 4 p.m.
Well, I cheated. I ordered a pizza.
4 p.m. Yeah, I haven't eaten anything.
So I'm pretty well good.
You're a smart guy.
Well, yeah, that's how I got to where I am today.
Yeah, I feel like I'm fasting or something. I'm gonna go have breakfast. And thanks again, guys. This was awesome. We should connect again, like in a couple days, and just
at the latest.
Yeah.
At the latest, we have to talk about stuff. I have some ideas, and I'm sure everybody does.
Let's make it happen.
So Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right,
Thank
thanks,
you,
guys.
everyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Good night, everybody.
Take care,
Night.
guys.
Yeah.
See ya.
I'm going to end the meeting. In the
Go for it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.